Welcome back to the FPL reaction stream, this time out of Double Gameweek, well, ahead of Gameweek 26, and we're in the middle of Double Gameweek 25, but so much has happened, and we've only had the Friday night game between Brighton and Chelsea, and you could see an eventful day on the Saturday. Those that stuck with David Moyes, fair play. Maybe you went for Fabian Hurstler as your assistant manager, or Marco Silva with back-to-back double-digit returns. I mean, FPL can be really unpredictable. And we'll see how Liverpool get on tomorrow, of course. I've got my triple up with Trent, Salah captain, and Arne slot. Morgan Rogers was disappointing today from an FPL perspective, but he was so close to scoring. But a brilliant performance by Palmer, the goalkeeper. If only Cole Palmer played that well, because he was disappointing on Friday night. I'm seeing a lot of comments already saying we should sell him. I have to say, I completely disagree. I know he's been poor recently with his FPL output, but I don't think it makes much sense in the grand scheme of things. But we'll get into that and a lot more. Smash the like button if you enjoy my content, subscribe to the channel, and keep your eyes peeled for the UCL fantasy content over the next couple of days. If you are a channel member or patron, you can actually see the best limitless team already. It is available to you, and it will be published for everybody else tomorrow. So stay tuned for that. And if my voice cracks, it's probably because I shouted like an absolute idiot earlier, because I just did not expect Arsenal to score, and they got 2 late goals courtesy of Mikel Merino, the super sub. So credit to Mikel Arteta for that, but yeah, Arsenal are down to the bare bones in the attack, and it's going to be a long couple of weeks, maybe months, until the end of the season. Insane Gamer 7 starts things off saying, on 46 points of a big green arrow, nice place to start, I have to say that, to 1.6 million, my best rank. Is it time to start buying Marmoush, who was amazing? Well, it was a great performance in the first half, scoring a hat-trick in the first 30 minutes, and there were some brilliant finishes, like the first one, an assist directly by Edison, and he lobs it over Dubravka. I mean, that is just pure quality in my opinion, but do I think we should buy Marmoush now necessarily? No. He is facing Liverpool next, so I think the time to buy him is probably going to be the week after. And I think he could be a very nice purchase for blank Gameweek 29, but I wouldn't be advising him as a purchase against Liverpool. Yeah, I mean, you kind of know Batman. I mean, look, I think he's a skip for Gameweek 25, sorry, for Gameweek 26 specifically, but I don't think he's like a skip ultimately, like long term. I did cover Marmoush already, actually, in my Transfers podcast a couple of weeks ago. And he was a skip there because he was facing Arsenal at the time, and he was blanking a couple of matches, and of course this is the first game he's announced himself with a brilliant hat-trick against a decent team. But I will start to recommend him, I have to say that, but in a couple of weeks time, not just yet. Insane Gamer 7 says Marmoush proceeds to score twice against Liverpool. I mean, he could do it, but I just don't think it's very likely. But we'll see how he does in the Champions League. If he puts in a big performance against Real Madrid, I have to say, irrespective of the tough fixture against Liverpool, I think we'll definitely be very interested in him, and heads will turn for sure. One thing I have learned is never buy Aston Villa players. Yeah, well, once again, a bit unfortunate. The likes of Morgan Rogers, the Ipswich Town goalkeeper had an absolute blinder. He was amazing throughout. He made some big saves. But Aston Villa are inconsistent, and that's why in my recent Transfers podcast, I said I would skip Emery personally, but I completely understand those that went from Moyes to Emery. So far, it's not looking good. The only way that it obviously turns out is if Emery can get table bonus against Liverpool for a draw or a victory. I think that win would kind of make up for this disappointing 1-1 draw with Ipswich Town. Only 4 points if you went for Unai Emery, 1 for the goal scored, and then 3 for the draw, which isn't good enough. Easy99 says 44 minus 4 with 40 points. Pretty good. Looks like the sacrifice to get minus 4 by selling and die to better pays off while also having enough money to buy AM. Yeah, look, someone actually suggested that to me. It was a great recommendation in the end, but I just wasn't really feeling it myself. But Beto is bang in form. David Moyes has completely transformed Everton. They were in a relegation tussle. Now they're aiming for the top half. I mean, they've been brilliant. I did actually predict a 1-1 draw between Palace and Everton, but they scored that late winner. And Palace missed some big opportunities. Mateta missed one. Ismail Assar. They really should have scored a couple of goals. Insane Gamer says, I sold Watkins and Gakpo to Wood and Mateta, thinking about selling Rodgers to Trossard. Well, Watkins got a nice return. I think those that invested in him will be very happy. And I think ultimately after Gameweek 25, he is sellable. But the way Chelsea are playing, I think Watkins can get some joy in that fixture. But you are buying some really good assets. I just don't think with Chris Wood, despite the fact he has scored a hat-trick at St James's Park already, which was his first game actually under Nuno Espirito Santo, I'd still be a bit careful about that sort of thing, to be honest with you. Or at least it was one of the first few games of Nuno Espirito Santo's tenure at Forest. I need to double check that. But Mateta, yeah, he's been amazing recently. And I actually had enough money to do Ndai to Mateta, so maybe a bit disappointed I didn't do that, but it would have been for a hit in my case. Thinking about selling Rodgers to Trossard, a brilliant cross by Leandro for Marino's second goal, but I think he was very disappointing. I know Sterling was just awful after a fairly decent start for him. Then he was absolutely terrible, but I have to say Trossard was non-existent for 80 minutes, but that cross was obviously very well picked out, and he's been the most consistent Arsenal attacker in the last couple of weeks, but I think Wanyeri is going to be the star one. I mean, he was the best Arsenal player for the entire 90 minutes. I think he's the only Arsenal attacker I'd recommend, a 4-point family midfielder. He was very close to making it to my best wildcard team a couple of days ago. Easy99 says, AM Moyes next week, cheap, plus against underperforming United. Yeah, a reason why I talked about selling David Moyes is because against Palace and United, you're not getting table bonus, but if he continues with these victories, it doesn't really matter. And those that went for Moyes, fair play. I mean, he's been brilliant. And as he said during his time at West Ham, he's a winner. And he's a good manager. I mean, I have to say that he's been brilliant for Everton over the years, and he's back now, and it's a match made in heaven. Of course, is this just a managerial bounce? We'll wait and see long term, but I think he'll do a decent job, even beyond the next couple of months. And I'm surprised by how well he's doing, but it is David Moyes. He's a fairly decent manager. Thank you, Jay, for the super chat. Hey, bud, thinking of using my 2 free transfers on Gakpo, Ahmad out, Marmoush or Cunha in. Who out of Kluivert, Semenyo and Dango should I bring in? Yeah, great question, and it's worth raising that point. Amad Diallo could be out for the rest of the season. That is a massive blow for Man United. He's been their best player so far in this campaign, and ultimately he is a sell in Fantasy Premier League, even if it turns out to not be as serious as that. It's not looking good for him, and United could really struggle tomorrow against a Spurs side who just got a victory, and they're also getting some key players back. I say they just got a victory. I mean, in the last Premier League game they did, but yeah, it's not all plain sailing for them. But Tottenham have had a lot of bad luck with injuries this season, and finally things are turning. So if your question specifically, Gakpo out, yeah, I'd be on board with that. Marmoush or Cunha in? Well, Marmoush's performance today has definitely swayed me. I mean, I'm very appealed by him for blank Gameweek 29, but I'd still lean towards Cunha. I don't think the Gameweek 26 fixture is great against Bournemouth away, but neither is Marmoush facing Liverpool at home, should I say. I mean, Marmoush has much lower ownership, and both of them aren't as 10 players they would have been, especially Cunha, as he was a couple of months ago. But yeah, I'd still lean towards Cunha right now. That could certainly change after tomorrow, or maybe after midweek when we see Real Madrid versus Man City, the climax of that knockout playoff round. Who out of Kluivert, Semenyo and Dango should I bring in? I've been very consistent on this. I would go for Kluivert. Now, this week, I have to say, Semenyo, very disappointing. He got the assist in the end and had some great chances, played very well in the second half, but he also got booked, so 4 points from him. Kluivert got the assist and 5 points overall, and it was Dango Ouattara scoring the first goal, but Kluivert is my favourite. He's on penalties, and he's also getting good minutes recently. He's my favourite one for sure. So at the moment, I lean towards Cunha over Marmoush. This could certainly change in a couple of days or weeks' time, but with the other one, I'm very convinced about it. Kluivert over the others. We can discuss this question again, the Cunha versus Marmoush one, in the next stream. You just can ask the question as a non-super chat, and we can go through it again, but I'd lean towards Cunha still. Ahmed says, Marmoush was my planned Gameweek 29 transfer. He's going to be very popular with the price likely going up. That's true, especially for those that can't go to Haaland and that aren't free hitting in blank Gameweek 29. An alternative for them is to go for Marmoush as a forward, and that could work extremely well. So, yeah, a bit gutting for you, because that could have been a massive differential play for you by that stage. And his ownership could still be fairly low by then, especially if he blanks against Liverpool and the preceding games afterwards. But yeah, it's good that you had that in mind, and hopefully the transfer goes well for you. Time to sell Isak? Nope, I don't think so. It is 2 blanks in a row, and Newcastle have 3 losses out of the last 4 games in the Premier League. But I don't think Isak is a sell. He's doubling in 32, albeit he does blank in Gameweek 29. There is the possibility of a double for Newcastle in Gameweek 33, which Richard Millichip did actually ask me yesterday as well. But yeah, I wouldn't sell Isak personally. Richard says, hey Dylan, who's the best long-term Watkins replacement from next week? Cunha, Mateta, Marmoush, someone else? Already have Isak and Wood, will be free hitting in 29. My favourite is Mateta, especially in your case because you're free hitting in 29, so him blanking isn't an issue, and he'll double in 32. With 2 away games against Newcastle and Man City, but still fairly decent fixtures for an attacker, especially Man City away. We'll be selling Palmer soon to get Haaland, not worth 11 million right now. Not in terms of recent form, no, I agree with you, but Cole Palmer is one of the only players in the Premier League who have been so consistent since his debut, and that has that ability to produce massive returns on such a consistent basis. It was only 5 or 6 games ago, by the way, that he got back-to-back 10-pointers. So I'd be very careful about this, and don't forget Chelsea face Southampton and Leicester at home very soon. If Palmer doesn't return in one of those games, I'd be shocked. And yes, you can replace him with someone who does equally as well, but the chances are quite slim, in my opinion. Toronto says, hey Dylan, I really thought Newcastle would stand up better against City, to be honest. Are you surprised about the game? Well, I'd be a lie if I said I was surprised. Sorry, that I wasn't surprised. Actually, am I an idiot? Yeah, I am an idiot. My prediction was 3-2 Man City, so I've been very consistent on City getting the victory in that game, but they have a phenomenal record against Newcastle. I did expect more of a fight, and for Newcastle to create more chances and score a few goals. Isak had one decent opportunity that went just wide, but yeah, I have to say I'm a bit surprised by it. I thought Newcastle would be more competitive in that game, but they have shown vulnerabilities in recent matches. I think that Carabao Cup semi-final probably led us to believe that they're going to be amazing in the next couple of matches, but they've got some tough fixtures on paper, and Man City put in one of the best performances of the season, so a lot of different factors coming into play, but Marmoush ultimately made a difference with a superb 30-minute hat-trick. Sarri is disappointing, man. That hit the bar, and I'm still not going to sell him until he scores. Well, you're just going to be in for a lot of pain then. Sometimes you've got to accept you made a mistake sometimes, or you've had some bad luck with a particular pick. I bought Salah myself, and I should have bought Gordon at the time. Then I ended up buying Gordon, and it was too late by that stage, but my advice would be to sell Salah, to be quite honest with you. Easy99 says, Palmer is a must-sell player. I will sell him after Game Week 29, depending on his performance moving forward, to get more cheap Palace Newcastle mids, as well as buy Isak right now. I have to say, I completely disagree with those that saying, you know, we should sell Palmer. I just don't share that opinion. Now, if he goes up until the Leicester Southampton games and blanks, then yeah, I might be on board with you. And that blank Game Week 29 fixture against Arsenal isn't great for an attacker, but a must-sell player, I have to say, for me, that's completely wrong. And with those upcoming fixtures, I think Palmer will produce some big returns. He hasn't been the greatest recently, but there's also some good underlying numbers from Palmer, and there's been some poor finishing from the other Chelsea players, so I think it would be a mistake selling him. Ahmed says, on a side note, I have to see this guy nearly blew a 30-point lead with Leicester. Wait, what are we on about here? Maybe I've completely misunderstood what you're saying there. Pickford, Eze, Munoz, what a joke of a game. Yeah, I mean, pretty much just skipping points all around. But Pickford made a few saves, you know, you got something from it, an additional save point or two. Just like I did with Sells, but ultimately you want the clean sheets. Eze came on as a substitute, and Munoz did disappoint for once, but he's been so good recently, I think you can forgive him for one blank. As a gutted Chelsea fan, says Ahmed. Oh, right, okay, you're talking about Maresca, right, I see. Yeah, I mean, a couple of months ago, people were really bigging Maresca up, and he was doing a good job, but I always said, I've been very consistent on this, I never saw Chelsea in a title race. I thought they could finish top 4, and they were kind of my favourites to finish 4th after their start to the season, but they've just been on a poor streak, and there could be something to it, but I just think the Chelsea players, there are some top quality options. I mean, mainly it's Palmer, right? I mean, the defence isn't good enough, the goalkeeper as well. Chelsea have like 7 goalkeepers all round, and they still need to sign one, which is quite telling. 9-point red, I can't be asked. If you have an assistant manager like Arne Slot, that could be the difference for you, and that could turn it into a green arrow, but it is disappointing. I've got a marginal red at the moment, just for those that aren't aware, of around 20,000 places perhaps. So it's not something you want to see, but I'm actually fairly confident I can turn it into a small green at least. But yeah, I was expecting better from this game week. It's basically Chris Wood carrying my team. He's going to get maximum bonus points, so 9 overall. Semenyo got something at least, and it's refreshing to see him get something in my starting 11, but still a bit underwhelming. Palmer, of course, very disappointing. I've got Veltman clean sheet points on my bench, but yeah, I understand in your situation with a 9-point red arrow, it does seem quite grim, but I think you could get close to a green and maybe even achieve one by the end of the game week, depending on who you have. Definitely hold Palmer. That is my advice. I'm going to be very consistent on that. He was actually a purchase in my recent Transfers podcast, so maybe the timing wasn't great, but I've been seeing a lot of people talk about selling Palmer in the last couple of weeks, and after the Friday night fiasco, people are really on that boat. He had a decent opportunity, a half chance, which for a player like him, was a pretty good opportunity and chance to put Chelsea ahead at the time. But yeah, with Palmer's upcoming fixtures, the great underlying stats, I think there was a number flying around recently where he created 32 chances in this calendar year with no assists, and surely he is due an assist or two. But then again, you look at the other attackers, Sancho just hasn't really been able to push on after a decent start to the season. Jackson started very well and he's tailed off completely. And Maresca isn't able to really get a response from this Chelsea team right now. Will you swap out slot for Game Week 26? Well, my original plan was to potentially go to Eddie Howe, and obviously Newcastle losing the way they did. Yeah, I mean, table bonus against Nottingham Forest is an opportunity, so that is something I'm looking at. I would expect Newcastle to produce a decent response there, but Forest are still a very competitive team, and it could end up being a draw, and even with table bonus, that's a decent return. But I have to say, my current plan is actually to make the switch. So go from Arne Slot to Eddie Howe, but it is risky. We have seen Newcastle falter in recent weeks, especially in the Premier League, so that is ultimately the game, or the aim of this kind of assistant manager sometimes, to go for that high-risk, high-reward pick. People did it with David Moyes last week, Unai Emery at the moment, all these kind of random ones like Vitor Pereira in Game Week 24, or Hursler now, who got 21 points against Chelsea. But that is my current plan, to go to Eddie Howe. Best Ahmad replacements? I'd go to a Bournemouth midfielder. So Kluivert, Semenyo, Dango, Ouattara. My favourite is Kluivert. Easy says Marmoush is a good player this season. He just has to adapt to the team and teammates. He'll become a striking force. Yeah, and look, maybe he blanks the next couple of games but can play well. Like Savio played really well today, just didn't get many goals. Well, he didn't get any goals, but he didn't get in many goal contributions. But yeah, Marmoush has been very efficient with goals and assists combined. Only Salah has more in Europe's top 5 leagues this season. I'm holding Palmer till Game Week 27. Yeah, at the very least, I'd be holding him on until Game Week 27, 28. Then we can reassess afterwards. But Palmer's been one of the best FPL assets since Game Week 7 last season when he made his debut. Bench Fleckin, Visser, 2 weeks in a row blanked. Am I a clown? Jesus, I'm all over the place today. No, not really. In a lot of scenarios yesterday, I did suggest benching Visser, but I'm not sure who you benched to start Visser instead. So maybe you made the logical decision. With Flecken, I didn't expect West Ham to lose 1-0. So yeah, I don't think that is. I don't think that's a terrible mistake. You're definitely not a clown for that. Louis Gerard says, with Ahmad out, I'll likely be doing Ahmad to Iwanyeri to fund Emery to Arteta. Can't afford Dango. Is there another manager you think I should consider? Eddie Howe. There are going to be table bonus for Game Week 26 as Newcastle host Nottingham Forest. In the reverse fixture, it was 3-1 to Newcastle, and I think Newcastle could get a victory here again. So, yeah, I think that's a very high-risk, high-reward play, because Forest could still easily go there and get a victory. They did it last season with a Chris Wood hat-trick, but that is something I'm looking at. I was actually considering Arteta a couple of weeks ago, but after Martinelli and Havertz's injuries and Arsenal not signing anybody in January, I'm not very keen, and the first 80 minutes were quite dreadful to watch. It was really painful as an Arsenal fan to just see Arsenal struggle to build anything in the attack when Yeri was the only shining light, and then Marino saved the day with 2 brilliant goals towards the end. But it's a high-risk, high-reward play, I'd say. Well, maybe not high-risk, high-reward with Arteta, but it's riskier now than it would have been a couple of weeks ago because Arteta and Arsenal just have a very lackluster attack right now. But yeah, good moves overall. I have to say, Wanyeri is my favourite 4-point family midfielder. The same goes for forwards if you're considering one at that price point as well. Wanyeri is a decent option at that price for sure. So yeah, looks really good to me. And I think Arteta over Emery in 26, I'm on board with that. Patrick says, hi Dylan, good start with 45 points and 8 to go. Would you sell Diaz for Mbumo this week or take a punt on Mitoma? Yeah, Mitoma's goal yesterday was absolutely incredible. I'd go for Mbumo though, who has been disappointing in recent weeks. Have Palmer, Salah, Dango and Kluivert already and want to go different to 10 play. To the 10 play, I'm guessing you're saying, yeah. I keep Palmer, and in your case, I'd go for Mbumo over Mitoma, but obviously you said towards the end you want to go against the template, so yeah, going for Mbumo isn't going to help you in that quest, but my recommendation out of the two is Brian Mbumo. Pep said Iriola style is the way forward. To be fair though, Pep Guardiola gasses everyone up. You know, when Arsenal were terrible and Arteta was there, you know, Guardiola was always kind of little broing Arsenal and stuff like that. I mean, look, maybe he is genuine with a lot of his kind of, you know, elogios, his praise for other managers, but Yeah, I'd always take what he says with a pinch of salt. Most sell player, okay, not must sell. Fair enough, fair enough. I misunderstood. I just don't get it. I don't really see why Palmer is the most sold. I think that is very knee-jerky, to say the least. If Salah is the Egyptian king, Marmoush is the Egyptian prince. Yeah, I mean, I see why Salah's called that, but ultimately none of them are royalty. Pieter says, a lot of injuries on other performers at the moment in the Prem. Luckily, I have double Bournemouth mids in the team. Yeah, and even then, they were a bit underwhelming, right? Unless you went for Dango or Tara, but Cloyve and Semenyo definitely left a lot to be desired. Yeah, met Maresca at Chelsea, just venting. Yeah. I got that in the end, don't worry. It's just because I was reading other comments as well, I kind of lost track of it. J War says, who's the best AM for next week? Hal can't get table bonus against Forest, even if Villa win against Poole. Okay, yeah, you're probably correct there. Let me double check this since I'm laughing about like an idiot. Oh yeah, because, well no, Forest are third. Yeah, Newcastle 7th. Yeah. Well, Villa beating Liverpool, that is the way. And I don't see that happening, by the way. But goal difference, -3 for Aston Villa. Yeah, Newcastle have 9. Yeah, there's no chance. You are right. You are correct about that. Yeah, that is a shame with Eddie Howe, because I was looking at that as a potential assistant manager. I mean, Arteta would be a kind of a logical one, but I'm not really trusting the Arsenal attack, and it wouldn't surprise me if West Ham caused some problems there. So it will be an interesting one. Sticking with Slot could be a play. Obviously, you can't go for Pep Guardiola. Well, you can, but you're not going to get table bonus from him, as City are 4th in the Premier League table now. So there's nothing really clear-cut in 26, and that's why I did say to a lot of people, if you didn't activate it in 24, I'd rather triple captain Salah in 25 for sure, and I would save the AM, the assistant manager chip, for later in the season. But surely there's going to be 1 or 2 like surprising picks in there that do the business. Right now, if I had to pick for Game Week 26, yeah, Eddie Howe, I'd avoid it now with the lack of table bonus. Interesting one. Yeah, Iraola would be up there against Wolves, but once again, no table bonus. I would also consider Mikel Arteta. I think the 2 Spaniards there would be my favourites. Yeah, that's something I'll look at myself because I was looking at selling Slot for Game Week 26, but ultimately keeping Arne Slot isn't too shabby either. Do you go for Ursula or maybe back a Southampton upset, which would be very risky indeed? I would not recommend Juric, but surprises do happen in the Premier League, and Brighton tend to really step up against the biggest and best teams in the country and then falter against weaker opposition. So, I mean, I'm just saying it now. Juric, if he got a draw or something, would not completely surprise me, but it's very high risk, high reward. Ultimately, if you want to go a bit safer, I think Arteta and Iraola are the best managers to go for. So apologies for that Eddie Howe comments earlier. Yeah, it's the tail bonus are not on offer, so I would not be going for it. Bring in Matoma for Gordon. He has been fairly decent recently. Of course, the blank in the 7-0 loss, but got a brilliant goal against Chelsea and a few bonus points. And he's been Brighton's most consistent attacker recently, but yeah, not for me. I don't think I'd bring in Matoma personally. Maresca already said Chelsea not in the title race. Why the media keep saying Chelsea in the title race as a Chelsea fan? Well, some Chelsea fans themselves, and obviously it's kind of natural to get carried away sometimes, but people did buy into the hype. Chelsea were second back in December, and they were scoring the most goals at one stage of the season, if not the second most. But I always said the defence and the goalkeeper aren't good enough to win a league, and even the midfield isn't really great. I think Caicedo and Enzo are good players in isolation, but it's not a great midfield, collectively speaking. And if you actually break it down, there is a lack of quality in the attack. Only Palmer is kind of like a close to world class, you could say. The rest are nowhere near it. So yeah, Patrick, I did cover that earlier, so hopefully you got that answer. I would go for Mbumo personally. Bench scored more than starters so far, says Gary. Not what you want to see for sure, but maybe your Liverpool boys can help you tomorrow. Aliston says, hi Dylan, who will be the best AM for Game Week 26? So yeah, this will be a popular question. Arteta or Iraola for me. If I had to pick one now, I'd probably lean towards Iraola. Thoughts on Isak, will you hold through blank Game Week 29? It depends on what I ultimately do with my chips. Do I play the free hit in 29, which I'm keeping as an option, but it's not set in stone, because another alternative is free hitting in blank, or double Game Week 33 actually. I think blank Game Week 34 is less likely for me to use the free hit. So yeah, if I free hit in 29, I'd definitely keep Isak 100%. He doubles in 32 and could also double in 33. And if that's the case, I think Isak is a must-have for that time frame. It's the board and Enzo Maresca. The board is clueless and the gaffer spineless. People said something similar about Pochettino last year, which was understandable, but he had a great end to the campaign. Only one heavy defeat in there against Arsenal, but apart from that, Chelsea were one of the best performers in the last 10 games of the campaign. Yeah, and Maresca started well. We'll have to say that after the loss against City in Game Week 1. A very, very good response, but it's been dismal since December. And Chelsea, I mean, look, if this continues for another month or two, Maresca will be under serious pressure and we could see another managerial sacking. But it's a results business and Maresca has the tools to turn things around and put Chelsea back in fourth, which I think would appease the fans, and they're still the favourites to win the Conference League. Omara says, hello Dylan, currently on 36 points left with Gakpo, Salah captain and AM slot. Thoughts on doing Ahmad to Mitoma or Dango? I'd rather go for Dango or Ouattara. Or just do Gakpo to Wood in Game Week 26. Well, Chris Wood scored a hat-trick against Newcastle last season, but I think the best time to buy him is Game Week 29, which I said yesterday as well. I did Bruno to Clover this week. Yeah, I like that transfer. And Bruno could do very well tomorrow against Tottenham, but that injury to Ahmad is a massive blow. In your case, Mitoma, look, he's been pretty good recently, but I'd rather go for Dango. 41 -4 Watford game week. I think 37 is a decent score at this stage. It's a green arrow in a lot of rank points, actually. Sell Trent to who? I have Hall, Kirkes, Gabriel, and Munoz, says yeah, 1298. I'd only sell Trent if you're going to make another move in Game Week 26, like an upgrade. So the extra funds by selling Trent helps you there. My favourite from those defenders is going to be Gabriel, and afterwards I'd be looking at Kirkes. I still like Munoz a lot, and maybe all three of those options would feature in a best wildcard team, but Munoz blanks in 29, and if you don't have the free hit, I definitely recommend one of Gabriel or Kirkes. Lewis will be at the bottom of that list. I think he's more of a purchase around Game Week 31. Yeah, Amatu Mbumo is a good transfer. Yeah, so yeah, that was already corrected and covered about Newcastle. So just to reiterate, so Newcastle are 7th, Forest are 3rd. So unfortunately, no bonus for Eddie Howe, but maybe Ruud van Nistelrooy, which has been mentioned in the chat as well. Against Brentford, that could be a decent play there. If you are backing a Leicester upset, a draw or a win would do quite nicely. Juric against Southampton, Juric against Brighton, but I really wouldn't go there. I think Arteta or Iraola are the best options on paper for Game Week 26. Nathaniel says, really stinky game week. If Salah doesn't beat his double Game Week 24 score, my season is over. Well, asking Salah to get more than 29 points, as good as he is a very big ask, right? I personally don't think he will reach it, and I said it yesterday as well. But if I had the triple captaincy in 25, I would have played it on Salah against Wolves at home and Aston Villa away. I think 15-20 points from Salah this week is still a very good return, and that will beat most triple captaincy scores this season. So I kind of disagree with you there, but I understand why you feel that way. Toronto says, is Brighton going under the radar? I know Chelsea have been so-and-so, but you think it would be worth to look into Brighton assets? Yeah, but let's not forget they lost 7-0 last week. But they got that big win in the FA Cup against Chelsea and followed that up with a even bigger victory in terms of the scoreline against the same opposition 6 days later. But yeah, with Brighton, I think the best assets would include Mitoma. Defensively, I still don't trust them. I've got Veltman in my team who are probably starting Game Week 26, but I'd say shortly afterwards, I'd be looking to sell him, to be quite honest with you. But yeah, Joao Pedro for me, for example, he'd be a sell. And Danny Welbeck, if he can stay fit, he might be an okay option, but when you've got Beto, Cunha, Chris Wood, and multiple other strikers like Isak, Mateta, I just wouldn't go there right now. Thoughts on Joao Pedro and Aina to Mateta and Howson? I like both moves a lot, and as I've always said, Howson over Kirkes is my preference. With Mateta though, just be very mindful he blanks in 29, but if you're free hitting there, that is no issue whatsoever. Meza Ozil says, should I sell Murphy to Forest next game week? Already own Dango. Murphy has been a very decent option at that price this season, but I would go to a Bournemouth mid. My favourite is Kluivert. If you can't afford him, Dango's absolutely fine. Yeah, Beto's definitely become an option for sure. And those that were still really, bullish on him yesterday in the stream when I wasn't, fair play, because I didn't see him scoring yet again this week, but he's been very impressive in the last couple of weeks. Dryhill says, I think I'll be making an early transfer and get Dango and sell Rodgers. Useless today. He was very close to scoring, though, on 3 occasions, and Palmer, the goalkeeper, had a brilliant performance. So on another day, Rodgers gets a massive return, and he has been doing it in the FA Cup and Champions League, which we don't care about. We want that to be the case in the Premier League when he is in our FPL teams, but I think Rodgers could do something against Liverpool, even though I back Liverpool to win that game. Thank you, Richard, as well. Thanks to LeMay. Best long-term DS replacement up to 9.2 million from next week. Already have Salah, Palmer, Rodgers, and Kluivert. Yeah, very good midfield, and I'd keep Palmer. I'm very insistent on that. I mean, you could afford a differential in this position, to be fair, and that could be the play. But I'd probably say Mbeumo. If you're fairly happy to go for a template pick, I think Mbeumo is a good purchase in Game Week 26. Don't sell Cunha if you have him. I agree. So yeah, Lau asks, Marmoush for Cunha after Game Week 26? Not necessarily. And in blank Game Week 29, if you are not free hitting that week, Cunha has Southampton. You definitely want him for that. Look, Marmoush was brilliant today. And scoring a hat-trick against anybody is impressive, but let alone in 30 minutes against Newcastle. But I wouldn't sell Cunha. Yeah, Thomas Frank is a good shout for 26. Yeah, that's the other way of looking at it. So Van Nistelrooy will get the bonus points or the table bonus with a draw or win. But Thomas Frank, that could be a decent shout. I just don't trust Brentford away from home, despite their victory today against West Ham. Yeah, McKenna against Spurs, that's a brilliant shout, to be fair. The only downside I would see with that is that Spurs have been that poor this season that you won't get table bonus from that. But yeah, McKenna could get a win for sure. Yeah, no table bonus. Ipswich are 18th and Spurs are 15th after Everton's win today. You would need a difference of 5 places in the Premier League table or more. And that's why Eddie Howe, unfortunately, won't get this table bonus against Forest next week. Yeah, I agree, Jay Ward, but just be mindful that there are no table bonus on offer. Rude is my AM Game Week 26. Easy win. I wouldn't call it easy, but Leicester had some moments today against Arsenal. They were unlucky not to score. Lewis Skelly did brilliantly to kind of prevent De Cordova-Reid, who was coming in at the back post. There was a brilliant piece of play that changed the game for Arsenal. And also Ndidi had a header, I think, in the first half, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, if not fairly early into the second. Ultimately, though, it's a very risky pick, but it could pay dividends for you. Terry says, best replacement for Ahmad if I already have Kluivert, Palmer, Salah and Mbeumo, and I'm not free hitting. Yeah, so in this case, I wouldn't mind a punt on Wanyeri. If you want to go for one Arsenal attacker, my advice would be Wanyeri. He completed 6 dribbles today, hit the woodwork twice, even on his weaker foot, a fantastic shot which was saved by Hermanson onto the post, and he is the shining light of a blunt Arsenal attack. If you also want to go very rogue, Marino, 6 million midfielder who could play up front for Arsenal against West Ham. He did it today and scored a brace off the bench. That is the sort of punt, if people really want that differential, that I'd recommend from Arsenal. But I'm not a big fan of Trossard in FPL, although he has been the most consistent recently for the Gunners, I will admit. I would not be going for Sterling, that goes without saying, and I hope he somehow turns it around. But yeah, I think a punt on Wanyeri or Marino could work very well for you, actually. Happy Human says, Ahmad to Dango and Horterhausen, both great moves. I prefer Kluivert over Dango, so if you've got the funds, I'd rather go in that direction, but Dango is absolutely fine. Declan says Trent to Van Dijk and Gordon to Mbeumo. I like the Gordon to Mbeumo move, but if possible, I'd recommend keeping Trent. As good as Van Dijk is, I think Trent is still a level above in Fantasy Premier League. So yeah, thank you for those. Well, thank you to those that have been putting in the comments. There are a lot coming in. So yeah, obviously in this reaction stream, we'll take a bit kind of calmer since there's no deadline, no rush. So I'll go for all the questions. Hopefully my voice doesn't crack too much. Like I said, I shouted like an absolute beast today after the late goals that we saw in the early kickoff. Alex ND says, bought Kluivert overnight to save on price rise. Happy to have him in my team for Wolves. Was worried he'll ruin my rank. Yeah, I mean, in my case, I've got Semenyo, who's a low-owned player, a differential, so to speak, but it's such a pain seeing him return every time on my bench. He's still been disappointing in my starting 11, but an assist is better than nothing. I was expecting more from Kluivert and Semenyo this week, though, but some big saves by Ramsdale, particularly to deny Semenyo, and Kluivert is my favourite Bournemouth midfielder. Ivan says, should I go early and transfer Rodgers to Kluivert Dango? I wouldn't go early if possible, because we've got Champions League games in midweek, which affects the likes of Man City in particular. And injuries can happen. I mean, look at Kai Havertz trying to block a shot in Dubai and he gets a season-long injury. So if possible, I'd make the transfer closer to the deadline. But in regards to the actual move itself, I do like Kluivert in for Rodgers. Even Dango's fine, of course, but my preference is Kluivert. Yeah, Marmoush is more of a temptation around Game Week 29 for me, for the free hit potentially, or with my non-free hit team. It depends on my final chip strategy, but yeah, I am tempted. I mean, a first half hat-trick in the first 30 minutes against Newcastle, it's very impressive, and the finishes themselves were absolute quality. And on top of that, you look at his assist and goals record for Frankfurt this season, only Salah has more in Europe's top 5 leagues. Yeah, as covered multiple times, mate, the best ball for mid is Kluivert. McKenna AM in Game Week 27 versus United. Yeah, especially if United are 5 places or higher in the league table by that stage, which might not be the case actually, because United might lose against Spurs tomorrow, and all of a sudden, you're not going to get any table bonus there from McKenna. But yeah, we'll wait and see when the time comes. Ultimately, it's good to think ahead and have some ideas. That's a decent opportunity, especially if table bonus are on offer. Twisted Parkio 6 says, I need to start trusting my gut again. So damn annoying. Stats help, but my gut always knows. Best keeping Wood and Mbeumo with difficult fixtures and got them early. Yeah. I mean, look, I kept Mbeumo and he did very well in certain game weeks, but on the whole, it's kind of been mixed bag with Mbeumo. But Chris Wood, I did sell him at one stage, only for a few game weeks, but yeah, thankfully I've got it mostly spot on with him. Those that sold him last week would obviously be fuming. And I don't think it's like a bad decision on paper. Sometimes it's just a huge swing against you. And ultimately, a lot of people look at FPL with a results kind of based, just results-based analysis. And the same goes for football in general. McKenna home to Spurs is table bonus in 26, maybe worth a punt. Ipswich beat Spurs away, and that was all with less Spurs players fit too. So yeah, at the moment, it is kind of tight in the bottom 3. And of course, let's not forget Wolves, who are also struggling there, and they're facing Liverpool next. But at the moment in the Premier League table, we do have Ipswich in 18th and Leicester 19th. So as things stand, you would not get table bonus from McKenna against either Man United or Tottenham Hotspur. So that's just worth bearing in mind. You would need United or Tottenham to go to 13th, or for Ipswich to go down to 19th. So just, it's very important to take that into account. That doesn't mean he's not a bad option. I think he's pretty decent, and it wouldn't surprise me if Ipswich get a result against Tottenham. They did it already this season. But yeah, I'm not so sure if it will be table bonus. I think Spurs could get a win against United tomorrow, actually. Speaking of which, for those that haven't seen my predictions, let's go to my predictions now. So unfortunately, I made a late change, which I showed you yesterday. I did originally say 2-0 Arsenal, but I changed it to 1-0. But I did get the Southampton-Bournemouth game spot on. I said 3-1 Bournemouth. I did say 1-1 Brighton-Chelsea. They're very difficult to predict, Brighton. I also said 1-1 against Forest last week, and look how that turned out. Villa 3, Ipswich 1. Got that wrong. City, yeah, the amount of goals they scored and a win, but Newcastle, very disappointing on the day. And I did go for a 1-1 draw between Palace and Everton. And I got the West Ham-Brentford result wrong. It was a 1-0 win to the away side. But we'll see what happens tomorrow. I'm going to stick with my Liverpool 3, Wolves 0 prediction. Tottenham 2, Man United 2. That could be a Tottenham win, to be fair, with Amad Diallo potentially missing the rest of the season. Aston Villa 1, Liverpool 2. It could even be a 3-1 win for Liverpool, but I'm sticking with 2-1. I think Liverpool get the job done across both matches, but hopefully there is a slip-up and we get somewhat of a title race, some competition. But that Arsenal attack, it's really, really poor. I can't stress that enough. Hopefully it does the job. But those are my predictions, and let's go for some different screens in a little bit. Let's answer some questions first, since there are a lot in the chat, and I do appreciate it. We do have over 200 people watching. Smash the like button and subscribe if you're new. Our aim is to get to 32,000 subscribers by the Tuesday deadline stream for UCL Fantasy, and there will be Matchday 10 content headed your way. There is actually the Best Limitless team already available to members and patrons, so check it out after the stream is done, and it will be published for all subscribers tomorrow. Chelsea are the favourites to win Conference League before the GOAT joined Betis. Oh yeah. He's actually been in great form, Anthony, I have to say that. But Chelsea should still win it. That would be a disaster, in my opinion, if Chelsea don't win the Conference League. Twisted Parky says, recently I wanted to get better and I didn't. This week I wanted Dango for Rodgers and kept Wood, but I kept Rodgers and bought Watkins even though I wasn't feeling it. Wait, but if you bought Watkins, that's not too shabby, is it? I mean, he got maximum bonus points in that 1-1 draw against Ipswich Town, just like Chris Wood. But long term, you'd rather have Chris Wood, so I do get it from that perspective. Watkins could do something against Liverpool, although it's a bit unlikely. Easy says, it goes downhill when Roman Abramovich forced to sell Chelsea to Americans. Well, you could argue Abramovich is Chelsea's biggest legend, and I know some Chelsea fans might, be pissed off at me for saying it, but he completely changed Chelsea as a club. They had a few second-place finishes in the late 90s and early 2000s, but they were never going to win the Premier Leagues and Champions Leagues they've won without Roman Abramovich. No chance. Even FA Cups and Carabaos, they would have been maybe one of them, maybe, and that's kind of being nice. Best Joao Pedro replacements other than Isak. Mateta, if you're not free hitting in 29. It all depends on price and what you can work with, but my favourites long-term would still be Chris Wood. I think Chris Wood would be my favourite, and Matheus Cunha is a very decent shout. If you want to go a bit differential, of course, Marmoush for Blank Gameweek 29 looks very enticing, but he's still a bit lower down in the pecking order for me. I want to see a bit more consistency first before really delving in, but sometimes you need to go early and back your gut. That performance today was certainly very impressive. Should I take a -4? I have 2 free transfers, Gakpo to Marmoush, Hall to Gabriel, and Gordon to Trossard. Not for me. Gakpo and Marmoush are facing each other, so I wouldn't make that move just yet. Hall to Gabriel is amazing. I like that transfer. Gordon to Trossard, as mentioned before, my favourite Arsenal attacker is Wanyeri, but Trossard is not a terrible punt, to be fair, and he has been fairly consistent in the last couple of matches, but generally speaking, Trossard is quite inconsistent, and that's why, for me, he's the perfect squad player. He can come off the bench and do well, or start the odd game or two, maybe get 3 starts in a row and do the business, but now he has to start every single game for Arsenal, and the options are limited. Good transfers overall, but in terms of Gakpo to Marmoush, my advice would be no for the time being. Do you think Rodgers to Wanyeri is a good option to free up funds to be able to get Cunha for Blank Gameweek 29 onwards? Yeah. Now, with Wanyeri, he's not going to get goal contributions in most matches, and I wouldn't expect like an Amad Diallo hat-trick that he did earlier this season, although he is much older. But with Wanyeri, he's been brilliant for Arsenal. He's got actually the best goals per minutes ratio in the club, and he got an assist today. Very unlucky not to score. He hit the woodwork twice. I like the move, I'm not going to lie. Gerard says, hey Dylan, question, are you sure there is table bonus for Newcastle? No, there isn't. As covered before, there is no table bonus. So yeah, hopefully you saw that by that stage. This question was probably posted like 10 or 15 minutes ago. Bava Bruggen last week from -1 to 11 points this week. Yeah, football's a crazy game. No one expected Forest to win 7-0, and then for Brighton to beat Chelsea in the FA Cup, and then to win 3-0 in the Prem. Thoughts on Glasner AM for next week? Not a terrible shout, and look, people would have said Vitor Pereira last week, what are you thinking? He got 19 points, I think it was. You're going to get these massive returns from the likes of Marco Silva that you don't expect, but against Fulham away, yeah, table bonus is a possibility. In fact, it will happen, because if we look at the table, Fulham are 8th, and Palace, no, they're 12th. Yeah, you're not going to get table bonus, so yeah, it's not worth it. No, it's not worth it in my opinion. I mean, look, you can still get a win and a nice return. I'd just rather go for Arteta or Iraola in that case. Salah is owned by 200% plus of players. Unless you triple captained, you'd want him to blank. Yeah, I do. And if it means Liverpool drop points, bienvenidos, mate. That's what I want to see. But Salah's going to get a goal, at least, across both games. And I think Liverpool get 4 points minimum. But you live and hope, right? Twister Parky says, I have Trent, Salah, Rodgers, Slot, Watkins to go, and on 31 points. Not too shabby. In fact, I think that could turn out to be fairly decent for you. And that Watkins haul is massive, in my opinion. That could be enough for the Green Arrow. Which 2 players to bench? Mikalenko, Castagna, Munoz, Gabriel, Hall next week? I will not be benching Gabriel. No chance. Lewis Hall, maybe. But I think ultimately looking at this, I would start Gabriel, Mikalenko, and Daniel Munoz. That's my current preference. Lewis Hall is just behind that. And I think Castagna's last. Yeah, Patrick, you did say that before. I highlighted it, but that's not true because Ipswich are 18th and Spurs are 15th now in the Premier League table. But if Spurs beat Man United tomorrow, that could be a different story, right? They'd go up to 13th. Let's wait and see. Andrew Barton says, bench for Bruggen and Rodgers is now going from my team to Dango. I just brought Rodgers in, right? But very unlucky not to score today. And maybe against Liverpool he can do something. Yeah, Dango's a very good transfer. Beto is just as good as DCL. He does not get a fair crack of the whip before Moyes. Well, yeah, Beto obviously had a big impact off the bench in one game earlier this season. It might have been against Bournemouth, actually. It was the same time that City played Southampton. It was on that day, back in game week 7, I think it was. Or game week 6. Game week 6 it might have been. But yeah, look, Beto, he had an okay start to his Everton career. Then he kind of just tailed off and didn't get minutes. And he's been brilliant recently. But let's see if he keeps it up. Maybe in the long term he doesn't. But I think you kind of go for him and strike when the iron is hot. And he's been very impressive. Had Verbruggen since game week 16. Sold him for Kepa in 25. He hauled. And Kepa blanked. Yeah, it's typical FPL, isn't it? It's a good decision on paper, but the wrong outcome. Tips on finishing outside $1 million. I want to finish well this season. I'm currently on 2.4 million rank. So yeah, there is no like formula. And sometimes everyone plays FPL kind of differently. So maybe in your case, going a bit maverick and going for differential suits you more compared to a more conservative manager like myself, for example. But I do like the odd punt when possible, when I see an opportunity. And I think ultimately in some cases, you might want to kind of go against the crowd. So instead of buying Mbeumo in the midfield, you might want to go for Mitoma, as someone else mentioned earlier, or go for someone like Wanyeri, who will have very low ownership and people aren't really that enthused about Arsenal right now with their injuries, but that could be a difference maker for you. But be very mindful about future blanks and doubles. The biggest piece of advice I can give you is to use a website like fpl.team. It's very easy to find and you can visualize future game weeks and plan your transfers. It won't always go according to plan, but it's good to have certain things in mind and then you can adjust and adapt depending on injury, suspensions, and other factors. Bruno to Semenyo for a -4 worth it, or is Bruno a hold till 29? I wouldn't buy Semenyo for a -4, but I also wouldn't hold Bruno until 29. I don't think both are kind of mutually exclusive. You can do one and not the other, if you catch my drift. But my advice would be, don't buy Semenyo for a hit this week, although it's a good fixture against Wolves at home, and I wouldn't hold Bruno until 29. I would avoid all United assets if possible. Moyes has confirmed what a legend he is. Top manager. Didn't work out at United, but top manager. I mean, look, managing United, the biggest club in England, we could say, definitely one of the biggest in the world, is such a big task, especially following the footsteps of Sir Alex Ferguson, the best Premier League manager in history. But yeah, at Everton, it's a match made in heaven. And, you know, you look at Wenger at Arsenal, Ferguson at United, Mourinho at Chelsea, and then David Moyes at Everton. They're kind of synonymous with each other, the club and the manager. And he's probably Everton's best manager in a few decades, actually, since they were winning titles. Palmer is due a haul. It's frustrating. Who's a good differential above 8.5 million? Above 8.5, bit of a tricky one. There aren't many I'd recommend, like Heung-min Son, if you're kind of backing Spurs to make a big comeback, but I really wouldn't recommend Son. Maybe Phil Foden as a somewhat differential. Yeah, I think Palmer is due a haul. I agree with you. I would not be selling him, but you don't need to buy a player to replace him at over 8.5 million if you catch my drift. But ultimately what I recommend is to keep Cole Palmer. Alisson or Sells, who to start? I'd go for Sells. Better chance for clean sheet. And City, if they can play that way against Liverpool, they can score a few goals, in my opinion. JR21 says, Amateur Rodgers felt like a terrible move after his blank today, but recent injury news has completely changed things. Yeah, very unfortunate. You don't want to see any player get injured for the rest of the season. Speaking from experience, of course. But look, injuries are part and parcel of the game, right? And hopefully he does recover soon. But that is a massive blow for United. I can't understate that enough. And well, I can't, emphasize that enough. And it is really an understatement. We all know how big of a miss he's going to be. People who kept Moyes are the real winners. Potentially. But let's see what Arne Slot does tomorrow. I hold Gakpo. Is he 100% out tomorrow? Not 100% out, but he wasn't spotted in training yesterday. And Arne Slot said he's doubtful for the Wolves game, which was covered in yesterday's deadline stream. I'm getting Dango for the Wolves game. Yeah, look, if I wanted to make a midfield transfer, I wouldn't be against doing Rodgers to Kluivert or Dango Ouattara in my case. So I definitely understand the appeal. A lot of people mentioning Dango Ouattara today, the assistant manager, and it's completely understandable. So yeah, thank you to those that have liked the video already. Let's keep on plugging away at the likes and subscribe if you haven't done so. Thank you to all the subscribers, super chatters, super thankers, everyone who has supported the channel. Let's go through some different screens though, and then we'll go back to your questions. So let's kick things off with predicted points. And actually, we normally do it with the fixture ticker. So we'll do that instead. Let's bring this up here. Wolves are now top from Game Week 26 until Game Week 31. We've got Bournemouth, Crystal Palace, Spurs, and Chelsea in the top 5. As for those in the bottom, Aston Villa, Liverpool, Fulham, Everton, and Forest. But if we do change this to Game Week 33, as you can see here, Newcastle could have a double Game Week in 33. That would make it back-to-back doubles for them. And of course, we did get the confirmed double Game Week 32 fixtures for Newcastle and Crystal Palace. So that's locked in. The Game Week 33 ones are all provisional. So yeah, it looks like everyone's going to double there. That is not going to be the case. So it's probably just worth showing you until Game Week 32. That would mean Newcastle go top. Wolves, Palace, Bournemouth, Chelsea would complete the top 5 here. As for predicted points, Salah is top once more. Isak, Palmer, Haaland, Son, Dango Ouattara, Odegaard, Mbeumo, Trossard, and Gabriel finished the top 10. A lot of Arsenal players in there. Gabriel's understandable, not so much the others. But Odegaard played fairly well today. He can be frustrating at times, but he created some big chances, and Trossard got the assist for Mikel Merino towards the end. And Cole Palmer, despite being the most sold player ahead of Game Week 26, is third in this ranking. As for managers and their predicted points, Ange Postecoglou is top between Game Week 26 and 28. Maresca, Slot, Arteta, and Vitor Pereira finished the top 5. And if we look near the bottom, we have Nuno Espirito Santo, Juric, David Moyes, Van Nistelrooy, and Marco Silva. Let me just get that up again. Yeah, that is the bottom 5. And I'll slowly scroll up and you can see how the others look. So Eddie Howe is ranked quite low in this list, but take this with a pinch of salt. Vitor Pereira was near the bottom a few weeks ago, and so was Nuno, and they both got massive returns in 24. But it's a nice guide to see who are maybe the most appealing managers on paper, but ultimately, sometimes you need to go against the grain and go for the high risk, high reward. Maybe Van Nistelrooy, you go for Juric, who knows at this point, but my favourites would be Arteta and Iraola for Game Week 26 specifically, and I could be in the market for a new manager in Game Week 26. As for projected price changes, Marmoush, after that hat-trick, is going to go up in price tonight, it looks, according to fpl.team anyway, and so will Leandro Trossard. As for price falls, Nicholas Jackson, Gordon, Sanchez, Isak, Young, João Pedro, Enzo, Cher, Davis, Solanke, Gruder, Yates, and McAteer. So those are the projected price changes there. All right, so let's now go to fpl.team. So this was my original plan, to buy Eddie Howe for Arne Slot, but unfortunately there are no table bonus on offer for Newcastle. So if I were to make a managerial change, maybe I back my manager and I go for Mikel Arteta. It's just, I don't want to jinx Arsenal. I got rid of all the players in UCL Fantasy and FPL, and I really don't want to jinx them. They're unbeaten in 15 games in the Premier League, so maybe I just go for Iraola and triple up on Bournemouth that way. Or, well, in this case, I don't have a triple up, but I could take a -4 hit, go from Rodgers to Dango or Kluivert, who is my favourite at the moment. But I do have a lot of money in the bank, which gives me flexibility with my future moves. But I'm fairly happy with my setup overall. I do have Trent away to City, which isn't the best. Sells away to Newcastle. I've got a clash there with Isak up front, who is currently my vice, or he was supposed to be. I might change the vice to Semenyo or Mbeumo, for example. But yeah, Salah captain against City is quite locked in for me right now. We'll see how he does tomorrow against Wolves, and of course in midweek against Aston Villa. But yeah, if I were to change slot, which isn't locked in for me, by the way, I could keep him in the end, it would be Mikel Arteta or Iraola replacing him. Let's also look at stats, and is it even worth talking about Salah and the captaincy? Because look at this statistic. It's absolutely ridiculous. 99.61% of the top 100k managers have captained Salah. I've never seen anything like this, even in the Haaland days where he was the most template captain you can really think of. These are outrageous numbers. Watkins was second, and I mean, so far, they're doing pretty well. Rodgers, Isak and Kluivert in the top 5, but has to be Salah right now. You need a great reason to go against Salah for the captaincy, but that could change at some stage. As for FPL Challenge, I do have more points in that game mode, once again. So last week I got 149 points. At the moment, I'm on 28. So Martinez as my goalkeeper blanked. Unai Emery only 4 points. Gabriel with a clean sheet. We'll see how Trent and Van Dijk do tomorrow, but I could still make some changes there if I wish. And I've got Palmer, of course, who blanked. Salah as my captain. Rodgers and Ollie Watkins up front, who will get bonus points. So actually, this should be 31 if I also factor in bonus points as well. So yeah, maybe I'll change that live on stream. Should I even do that? Probably not, right? But yeah, that is my current FPL Challenge rank and, well, the game week score. Kluivert got the assist, and I've got Luis Diaz since I don't back Gakpo to start tomorrow. If he is in that lineup, though, Gakpo will be in my FPL Challenge team once again. So let's now go back to my FPL squad, the normal one. And yeah, as you can see here, I've got Trent, Salah and Arne Slot left to go. Rodgers has one more game, so still a lot to play for, you could argue, but yeah, I don't see a massive difference between where I am now in rank and where I could be at the end of the week, unless Arne Slot does a madness, and I hope Salah goes quiet because his effective ownership is ridiculous, as it has been for the last couple of weeks. So, let's go back to your questions. Any news on when Saka returns? Some reports indicate that he will be back around mid to late March, but there was also another one that said that he faced a setback. And I do think, yeah, Arteta did dismiss it yesterday in the press conference. I would say late March, early April, but I really hope Arsenal don't rush him back. And the same goes for Martinelli, similar time frame for him. If Palmer didn't have a good run of fixtures, he'd be next to go. I get it. I mean, look, if he had like terrible fixtures after all the poor output he's been showing, I get it, but I just don't, it's not even crossing my mind selling him, I have to be honest. Only got 21 points, yikes. Yeah, a lot of people are in a similar boat. Those with 30 or 40 will be very happy this week. Worth keeping Emery and roll or move? I'd probably move him on, but Chelsea are there for the taking, to be fair, but with Aston Villa, you don't know what you're going to get. You'd probably say they're slight favourites to win this game. They're at home, and Chelsea have been all, out of sorts since December. But I think Arteta, Iraola, Arne Slot still will be better options. And you could go for table bonus by maybe picking someone like Van Nistelrooy, for example. MD says, hi Dylan, would you consider Dango in for Rodgers -4? Want to sell Slot for Iraola, Arteta? Rodgers has no match in 29. Dango, Wolves, Brighton, Tottenham and Brentford, Ipswich. Mateta, Isak, Wood is my front three. Yeah, I would consider it for -4. And I covered that in the fpl.team section just a few minutes ago. My preference is Kluivert, but I think Dango is absolutely fine. Best time to wildcard, it's ultimately team dependent, and I have covered the best time to use each chip in my chip strategy guide, so be sure to check it out if you haven't already. But I think Game Week 32 or Game Week 34 looks really promising. I think Game Week 34 might be a very nice play, actually, but some people might do it in Game Week 31 or immediately after Game Week 29 and deadening their team for blank Game Week 29, then they just wildcard out of it in Game Week 30. So there are different ways of playing it, but in terms of the window, I'd be saying between Game Week 30 and 34. Mikel Merino, new striker? Hopefully. I mean, Arsenal needs something. I'd rather Merino up front than see Sterling start, that's for sure. Jose says, at now, I have one free transfer and 3 options. Emery to Frank, Gakpo to Cunha, Mateta, Marmoush, or Rodgers to Wanyeri. What do you think? I have to say, at the moment, yeah, Emery to Frank, that's another one that could be pretty decent, but I'm not that infused about Thomas Frank. Gakpo out for Mateta is my favourite, especially if you're free hitting in 29. Rodgers to Wanyeri is a good shout as well, but my favourite transfer is Gakpo to Mateta. Mohammed says my attack is Isak, Watkins and Dye. What do you think about the Egyptian Prince Marmoush? He's definitely on the watch list for blank Gameweek 29, and since you've got Ndai, moving him to Marmoush is ideal if you've got the funds, but that's a big if. And you might even want to sell Ollie Watkins in a couple of weeks' time to Wood or Cunha, especially if you're not free hitting in blank Gameweek 29. Lucas is having a really miserable week, 28 points. I had Ahmad tomorrow, now JP comes off the bench with Salah and Trent playing tomorrow. Yeah, and I would have been quite optimistic about Ahmad against Tottenham, so that is a massive blow. You've got some Liverpool players at least. I'm not sure if you've got any Aston Villa coverage. And if you don't have the AM chip, yeah, I can understand if you're not too optimistic, but football can be a funny game and you might get a big surprise. But yeah, JP off the bench is not what you want to see. Sam says, I have bench boost and AM left. Best time to use them since I don't have any other chips left. Well, bench boost could be Gameweek 33. Basically, the two Gameweeks I'd use the bench boost in are 33 or 36. With the AM, I'd be looking at around Gameweek 31. If, for example, Newcastle get back-to-back doubles, then you could go for Eddie Howe and have back-to-back double Gameweeks there for him, and that looks really good. But if they don't get that back-to-back double, I would say bench boost 33 and assistant manager around Gameweek 35/36, and it all depends on how the doubles fall. Terry says, I have unlimited budget for the Ahmad replacement, by the way. Yeah, I'm not sure who you have already. You probably said it earlier, but it was quite a while ago. Patrick says, if Tottenham beat United, they will be 13th and Ipswich 18th. Yeah, I know, I get that, but that's still an if. We'll wait and see if that turns out to be the case. But at the moment, as things stand, that there is no table bonus on offer. We'll see how it goes. Worth keeping Gakpo or move to Vissa, Cunha, Welbeck. I'd probably move him on. Cunha's my favourite out of the three, especially for blank Gameweek 29. Morsan says, I bench Wood for Palmer. Rodgers, Isak, Mbeumo, Kluivert and Gakpo. Is that a skill issue? Not necessarily. I would have probably done the same thing. I mean, I did say I would start Chris Wood over Mbeumo yesterday, but I did tell a lot of people to start Palmer and not to bench him. And yeah, maybe I was wrong about that. It's just Palmer's the type of player you never want to bench, so I don't think that was a bad decision or a lack of skill. Declan says going Trent to Van Dijk will free up funds for Gordon to Mbeumo. I get that, but I'm not a big fan of that sort of move. If it was Trent to Gabriel, actually, I'd be more intrigued, which might sound a bit funny, but Arsenal still have a solid defence. I think Gakpo will be in the squad, but he won't start. That's my opinion. It's what I said yesterday. No Ahmad, Mainu or Ugarte tomorrow. We will lose. Yeah, that's what I said earlier, or throughout the week I said 2-2, but with these injuries and Tottenham getting some key players back, I'd lean towards a Tottenham win right now, for sure. Maybe 2-1 or 3-2. Hi Dylan, should I take a -4? I have 2 free transfers, Gakpo to Marmoush, Hall to Gabriel, and Gordon to Trossard. Good transfers overall, but I did cover your question earlier, I highlighted it. I'm not a big fan of Gakpo to Marmoush right now. They are facing each other, so you have the home advantage. Overall, I'd say yes, it's just, even with Trossard, for example, I'm a bit hesitant about him. Gabriel's a great move, absolutely. I'm targeting a potential AM on Frank in 31, but the funds are a problem. Not to even mention, I'll immediately need to switch to Hal for double Gameweek 32. Yeah. I mean, look, maybe I'm wrong about this. I'm just not a big fan of Thomas Frank as an assistant manager in most Gameweeks, but maybe it does work very well in Gameweek 26, or in your case, 31. Twisted Parky says, I forgot I probably have to transfer slot. I didn't factor into my plan. I would not have got Watkins. Now probably can't get Vissa. Might not be the end of the world, to be fair, but it's a great fixture against Leicester, away from home, at least on paper. It's just with Brentford, you never know what you're going to get, and they have been inconsistent recently. Toronto says, how do you think it will go for us? Arsenal the rest of the season? With this lack of attacking, it doesn't look good, to be honest. Yeah, look, I'd love to be one of those people who have their head in the clouds, who always see the positive side, and I try to do that, but for 80 minutes it was looking bleak for the Gunners, and Wanyeri was the kind of shining light, the hope, but kind of relying on a 17-year-old is awful. It's pathetic in my opinion. As good as Wanyeri is, and he's a top talent, you can't have him be the star man and, you know, kind of everything goes through him, because Trossard had a poor performance over the course of the 90 minutes, but kind of made up for it with the assist. Sterling was terrible. He had a decent start for the first 5-10 minutes and then just tailed off, and nothing went right for him. Yeah, Arsenal need to be creative. Arteta needs to make some big decisions, get the timing of the substitutions right, and do something a bit different, like Marino up front, and that could get Arsenal over the line. But ultimately, Arsenal should have bought that attacker or attackers in January and the summer, and they wouldn't be in this mess. Gabriel says, hi Dylan, Ahmad has got an injury that potentially rules him out until the end of the season. Who are the recommended replacements in similar price range? Well, I wouldn't mind a double up in Bournemouth with either Semenyo or Dango or Ouattara. But yeah, in your case, you said similar price range, fair enough. Wanyeri would be one. As bleak as Arsenal's attack looks, Wanyeri is the shining light for the Gunners. I think he's a decent punt in FPL. Otherwise, yeah, I wouldn't be buying Rodgers at this point. So it's really a Bournemouth mid, maybe Wanyeri, or you go in a different direction. Mitoma's not a bad shout if you got the funds, but I'm not sure what budget exactly you're looking at. I know you said similar value, but maybe someone around 6 million is still in that price threshold. Is Marino the new Enzo FPL-wise? Well, look, my point is, if Marino plays up front, I think he's a decent punt. Like, with Enzo, I was never really on board with that. I know he had that purple patch, he's a good player as well, but yeah, he can also play deeper. And I know Marino can as well, but with the Arsenal situation at the moment, I think Marino can play certain games up front, and that would be massive. I prefer Wanyeri, yeah, that is true. But Marino is like a decent punt with the current positioning and Arsenal situation. I did not see Newcastle being so bad. Is Howe still good next game? He's still decent. He can get a win against Forest, but no table bonus, so I'm not really looking at that anymore. What would you say about bringing in Dorgu, who might play as a winger in Ahmad's place, but is classified as a defender in the game? Yeah, he had a decent start in his debut. That's not a bad shout, to be honest, but yeah, I'm just with United. I mean, Dorgu is classified as a defender. The only hope there is the attacking returns, as you kind of mentioned there, but not a big fan of that. No. You might be onto something there, and maybe I'm wrong, but not for me. So yeah, the bonus points have been added, as some people are saying. Let me refresh the page. Not like it makes much difference. I've got 29 bloody points. I wish I had a bit more than that, but it's better than nothing, I guess. So these are my updated scores. Chris Wood with the bonus points, and that's it. No one else able to get any. Is Sharda a good cheap alternative instead of Mbumo? Yeah, I do prefer Mbumo, but Sharda sometimes comes up with the big returns. He got a hat-trick earlier this season. Sean says 36 points so far this week. Need a big week for Slot and Gakpo coming up. It's crazy, right? Because we had such a massive haul. Most of us did, 100 plus points in Game Week 24. And this week is the complete opposite. But yeah, Slot and Gakpo could be massive. I don't expect Gakpo to start tomorrow. But if he gets one start across both games, that's still fairly decent. Yeah, Ahmad is out until the end of the season, it looks like. Thoughts on Rodgers, mate? He was very unlucky not to score today, but that's 4 consecutive blanks in the Premier League. He's getting all these big returns in the FA Cup and Champions League. It's just not good enough. I told you all Brentford are not bad away. It was the fixtures. I was confident they would beat West Ham. I mean, you could also say with their home form, they had a lot of easy games at home. So maybe now we'll see kind of more of a balance where they drop more points at home, but on their travels, they get more victories. So maybe you are correct about that. Watkins did okay, sure, but it was a waste of a transfer because I now don't want him. I don't think Watkins is bad against Chelsea, though. I'll say that. Brahim versus Rodgers, who do you think is the better City produce? Probably Rodgers, but look, Brahim Diaz, he's still got talent. He scored a good goal in midweek against Man City, but it has to be Rodgers for me. Southampton always wins my clean sheet somehow. Yeah. Against Arsenal, back in Game Week 6, I think it was Game Week 6. Yeah, it was Arsenal, Southampton Game Week 6, and then they faced City in 7, which is something I mentioned earlier. Yeah, so many times we can think of. Hopefully they don't next week against Brighton, because I'm planning to start Veltman. Declan says my midfield is Salah, Palmer, Rodgers, Gordon, and Kluivert. Best Rodgers replacement out of Ouattara, Alanga, Iwobi, Sharda. Dango's my favourite. Roman is our god, says Wasing. And obviously this was some time ago. I'll try to speed things up. No, it's not time to sell Palmer. I've said that from the beginning. I would not be selling him. Yeah, not for me, Jellyfish, but football's a game of opinions. Rodgers to Dango for a -4. I'm tempted. That's fairly decent. Wanyeri free bonus points too. Yeah, let's actually talk about bonus points. I do recognise that's going to get in the way of some questions, or at least there are capabilities of catching up to the chat, but bear with me for a little second. So let's look at the bonus points. So for Brighton, 3, Chelsea 0. Minter, Verbruggen and Matoma got the maximum bonus points. For Leicester 0, Arsenal 2. So yeah, that's changed then, hasn't it? Let's actually refresh this page. Let's if Wanyeri got maximum bonus points, there has been a late change there, or maybe you got 2 bonus points. Let's see. Yeah, Wanyeri 3, Marino 2, Raya 1. Interesting stuff there. So Aston Villa, Ipswich Town. Watkins 3, Delap 2, Rashford 1. So for Fulham 2, Nottingham Forest 1, Chris Wood with maximum bonus points, the hero, the legend. Smith Rowe with 2, and Adama Traore with 1. He played very well today, Adama. A bit unlucky not to get more attacking returns. For Chelsea 4, Newcastle 0. No surprises who got the maximum bonus points. Marmoush, the hat-trick hero. Edison got 2, and John Stones got 1. For Southampton 1, Bournemouth 3. Christie with maximum bonus points. And then, what? Kamaladin with 2 bonus points and Aribo with 1. I probably just butchered that second name, apologies. And as for West Ham 0, Brentford 1. Sade with 3, Flecken 2, Ayer 1, and so has Collins. And for the final game that we just had culminate between Crystal Palace and Everton before we went live, Alcaraz with 3, scoring the winning goal, Beto with 2, and Jean-Philippe Mateta scoring once again, getting another bonus point. So that is all covered. Thank you to those that have been pointing out the bonus points. So yeah, Wanyeri getting maximum bonus points as a 4-point family midfielder. Interesting stuff indeed. So yeah, some of these questions have been covered, so I'm going to just kind of go to the newer ones and see what's happening. I would not be selling Palmer, Elika. If you want to sell him, fair enough, but you'd be looking at Mbumo, Kluivert, Semenyo, Dango Ouattara, maybe some of these options, but I just don't think it's worth it. Thoughts on captaincy for next week? For my team, it's Salah. I think generally speaking, there might be an outside shout, but I'm going for Salah. I'd probably buy Cunha in Gameweek 27. Yeah. I think Cunha's a better buy around that time, maybe Gameweek 29. Thank you, Keith. Massively appreciated. So, yeah, we're close to 300 viewers right now. Let's get these likes up to 200 plus. FPL app says 154 manager triple captain Marmoush. Absolutely crazy. Just the Parky says, or if I keep slot, can also go Rodgers to Dango. Good that Rodgers avoided that damn yellow card. Yes. I think I'd be tempted by Dango in for Rodgers and keeping slot. I'm in a similar boat to you, Twisted. I might do something similar. But, yeah. I'd go for Dango right now. Got a green arrow to 1.8 million. Nicely done, Insane Gamer. Hopefully you get an even bigger one. Don't do it, you will jinx Arsenal. Yeah, you're probably right. Thank you, Pieter. Great sign of confidence as well. Southampton to beat Brighton. Well, if that's the case, Juric, assistant manager, could be brilliant. The problem is no one is performing at the levels of Salah, so we can't gain from putting our captain on him. Only lose if we go against. Yeah, pretty much in most cases. You might get an outside Marmoush hat-trick from time to time, but it's just very risky. How did Gabriel lose his bonus and Raya get it? Raya made 2 saves. Also, how did Wood get free bonus? He had 1 shot, that was it. I'm not too sure, and it does seem a bit dodgy, the bonus point system, especially with the late changes, you know, towards the end of the game week. Sometimes it does seem a bit awkward, but yeah, I'm not exactly sure why Gabriel had a bonus point removed and it went to Raya. Ultimately, though, both of them have been Arsenal's best players this season, I have to say that. But in this game, yeah, did Raya really deserve bonus points? Probably not, actually. Hoping for the double Gameweek 32-33, Patience SQ of Asman. Yeah. Now, in my case, I didn't have the triple captaincy in 24. So for me, it was kind of an obvious decision to go for AM on slot. But hasn't gone great so far. But still, that could change tomorrow. And by the time Liverpool play Aston Villa. Genius Gamer says, would you prioritize slot out or Rodgers out if you had 1 free transfer, not free hitting in 29? Probably Rodgers out in this case and keep slot. I have Marmoush in my team for 2 weeks now. Nice. Fair play. I mean, he had some signs against Chelsea and Arsenal, but no one expected this, so enjoy the points for sure. When will Ahmad come back? Maybe the end of the season. It looks like it's a very long injury, unfortunately. Kluivert played 76 minutes. Yeah, not ideal. And that's something we saw towards the beginning of the season, but still decent minutes overall. And he is my favourite out of the Bournemouth midfielders. Mitoma for Ahmad or Mbeumo? Ahmad. I will not be selling Mbeumo, and Ahmad is out for the rest of the season, according to reports. Ollie Watkins' captaincy against Chelsea. Not a terrible shout, considering Chelsea's form, but I'd go for Salah. It seems boring, and there are probably other opportunities to go against him in 26. I don't think Watkins is one of them. I wouldn't rank him higher than Salah, but that's a decent play. DJ says, only free hit and bench boost left. Help. Well, let's break it down. In terms of Gimmick 29, the players that won't feature for you include Eze, Hall, Luka Dean, Gordon. Not too bad, to be fair, but yeah, 4 players not featuring in 29. You could free hit there. I would recommend the bench boost in 33 or 36, depending on which one's the bigger double game week, and also how your bench looks by that stage, but that would be my advice in terms of the chips. As for your team itself, it's a good team, and you do have Wanyeri, which is very interesting indeed. But some players I consider selling include Luka Dean, Eze, and those sort of moves also would help you avoid free hitting in 29 potentially, and you could save it for double gimmick 33 or 32, or just another time in the season. Wanyeri looked head and shoulders above the rest. I completely agree. I mean, he's a special talent for a 17-year-old, and yeah, he's got something about him, that's for sure. Pieter says, Wanyeri is one of those players that you could see after the first game that he was going to be a star. I hope we get something like that from you and Cheeto. Well, Cheeto had a brilliant record in the youth levels, but I'm not sure if there's like a attitude problem or something. I'm not sure. I mean, I've seen some clips and stuff. You can't judge too much, especially at that age. But yeah, Wanyeri, he made his debut for Arsenal at 15 years of age against Brentford in a 3-0 win a couple of years ago. So yeah, we've known about him for quite some time, but he's now getting the minutes and the opportunities, and it's great to see. What to do with JP? Sell, which I did cover in last week's Transits podcast too. Rough week so far, but we go again. Exactly that. That's a great way of summing it up. When to use AM? It also depends on which chips you have available, but I would not be using it now. No, I'd rather save it for double game weeks, so around game week 32, when Newcastle double, and they might have back-to-back doubles, by the way. But yeah, I'd be looking at game week 31 to 33 for sure, if not around game week 35, 36, but it also depends about the bench boost and which double game week is bigger between 33 and 36. But ideally, I'd say game week 33, 32 is the best time to use AM, because you'll have that back-to-back doubles anyway. You can go Eddie Howe in game week 32 and then switch him to a team or manager that has a double game week in 33. Rogers to Sharda and Gordon to Mitoma. A lot of Mitoma people, or a lot of Mitoma mentions today. Interesting. I like Mbeumo but prefer the Mitoma punt. Yeah, fair enough. As for Sharda, I would rather go for Wanyeri, or perhaps go for Dango Ouattara / Kluivert, Semenyo. Kluivert being my favourite of the lot. But yeah, Mitoma isn't a terrible pick. He's definitely the best Brighton asset. Slot or switch to Howe, Iraola, says Twisted Parky. If keeping Slot, getting Vissa, Mateta, or getting Cunha early before selling Vissa if I buy to get Cunha before 29. At the moment, I lean towards keeping Slot. But I also want to see how Man City get on in midweek against Real Madrid and how Liverpool do tomorrow. So that could also play a very big part in terms of whether we should sell or keep Slot for Gimmick 26. Ahmad to Mbeumo, Rogers to Wanyeri, -4. I just do Ahmad to Mbeumo for now. I think Rogers can do well against Chelsea. In fact, I'll say it now. I think Rogers will get something against Liverpool or Chelsea in the next 2 matches coming up. So I think he's worth holding on to. But, of course, if you can sell him to Dango or Kluivert, Semenyo for free, I'd recommend it long term. So that's a great move. But I think Rogers can still produce the goods against Chelsea. So yeah, my advice is Ahmad to Mbeumo for free. Having said that, though, I'm guessing the other transfer, Rogers to Wanyeri, is to fund the other. If that's the case, I'd probably do it. Terry says, best replacement for Ahmad if I already have Kluivert, Palmer, Salah and Mbeumo, and I'm not free hitting. I did cover this earlier. I'm fairly sure I did. I wouldn't mind going for another Bournemouth mid like Semenyo or Dango Ouattara. You could go for a punt like Mitoma, for example, or perhaps go for Wanyeri. The thing is, like, yeah, I think Wanyeri might be a decent punt for you. This is why I was excited about Marmoush. I'm probably going to sell JP and Gakpo to Cunha Marmoush soon, but I'm not sure. Yeah, I wish Arsenal signed him. That sort of attack is exactly what Arsenal needed. 34 points, 3-4 players to go. Well, yeah, if some of these players you're talking about, I mean, Salah is one of them, they would have 2 fixtures, so you technically would have double that. So, not too shabby. Took a -8 and went up 50k. 320,000 now. Nicely done, Martin. Ahmed is out for 3 months at least. He most likely returns next season. Yeah, exactly that. Lee says 4 players out long term now. Fab in goal, bad week, looks like wildcard. All chips left, Arsenal, Bournemouth, Wolves, triple ups for season holds with Salah, Palmer, Marmoush. No, I would not be tripling up on Arsenal. I think 1, maybe 2 at a push. So you're looking at Gabriel at the back and maybe Wanyeri as a midfield punt. With Wolves, Cunha, maybe Aït-Nouri if you want to go back there. That's it. So I think 1 or 2 players from those squads. Maybe Arteta, assistant manager in 26. But I think 1 or 2 is pretty much what you want to go for. Best Konsa replacement, Howson. You could also go for Kirkes. He's absolutely fine, but Howson's my favourite. How did the person with the highest score in FPL this game week, by the way, Captain Marmoush, when Salah has a double game week? Well, sometimes these people kind of like actively seek the highest score in a given game week. They might have multiple accounts and they basically just want to get the prizes or the #1 spot. I'm not saying this guy did it for sure, but we have seen that happen very often over the years. What's the Haaland potential injury? I don't think it's that serious. He got up fairly well and then he was subbed off. It's something to look at, and we'll get the information in midweek in UCL Fantasy. But ultimately, with Haaland, if you got him, definitely hold on to him and reassess. And I think Haaland will be very popular for blank game week 29 and the following game against Leicester City. Mohit says, hi Dylan, is Ouattara really a standard replacement for Ahmad? Tavernier has returned, Sinister is back too. Are Dango's minutes a given? Well, Dango scored a hat-trick. Well, he did very well recently, and he also got the goal today against Southampton. Yes, his minutes might be under question more so now, but I think the main risk will be Evanilson once he returns around April, maybe even a bit sooner than that. But yeah, I think Dango's a nice replacement, in your case for Amad Diallo, but my favourite is Kluivert, and I've been very consistent on that. Callum says a lot of people will captain random players just to get the highest score. Exactly that. Richard says Palace also have a chance of a double-double in 32 and 33. That is true. If they get through to the FA Cup semi-finals, plenty of table bonus potential matchups for Asman or Glasner around then. Risky though. Oh, for sure. And imagine back-to-back double game weeks and you've got bonus, table bonus as well. I mean, that could be absolutely massive. And Oliver Glasner was the standout last season if the assistant manager was a thing. Yeah, Karam, that's been covered. Howson's my answer. Gakpo replacements for next game week. The next game week, I like Jean-Philippe Mateta, but if you aren't free hitting in 29, that will be a potential issue for you. So you could be looking at Chris Wood, Cunha, and Marmoush. They'd also be on the watch list. Beto's banging form, but yeah, I'd rather go in the direction of the others, specifically Chris Wood and Cunha. Although for those two in particular, you could argue the best time to buy them would be for game week 29, actually, rather than beforehand. Who would you sell Emery to for next game week? Arteta or Irreola? If you want to get the table bonus or the possibility of table bonus, I think Van Nistelrooy could work. Juric for Southampton, which is very, very risky. I have to say that. I wouldn't go there personally. The safest bets you have are the Spaniards, Arteta and Irreola. Cheap defender differentials to get. Looking ahead for blank game week, Howson. He'd definitely be up there. Yeah, you could maybe go for a Palace defender like Gay, but the temptation, well, actually, you did say looking out for the blank game week, so that's not even relevant anyway, actually. So yeah, Howson would be my favourite. Aït-Nouri isn't really cheap, is he? He's close to 5 million, so probably doesn't classify. But yeah, keep it simple with Howson for sure. And if I get any other names, like Mikalenko, for example, I'd definitely let you know. What are the best strikers for the wild card? Chris Wood, Mateta, and potentially Isak. But if you really want that front three for blank Gameweek 29, I'd consider Marmoush instead of Isak. Or perhaps... Yeah, I mean, you could say Beto. I have to say, though, two strikers who blank in 29 who are very good options are Isak and Mateta. They're both brilliant options. Rodgers to Wanyeri, I'm on board with it. I like it. I'd probably keep Rodgers for now and then reassess going forwards. Who would you sell Rodgers to? Dango or Wanyeri? I'd still favour Dango, but Wanyeri, very impressive today. Minter could be interesting. He was man of the match against Chelsea. True. And he got maximum bonus points. Eddie says, hi Dylan, what to do? I'm on 16 points. Ahmad injured, Mezraoui to come in, and who to get for Emery next week. Okay, there's a lot of questions in there, I'm not going to lie, but let's break it down one by one. Yeah, Ahmad, you need to sell. I'd be looking at a Bournemouth mid like Kluivert. You could also go for Dango or Semenyo. I'd also be looking to sell Mezraoui potentially. I would rather avoid United completely if possible. Who to sell Emery for? Probably Arteta or Irreola. Now, you can also chase tail bonus, but it is high risk, high reward for a reason. I'd keep Rodgers for now, in your case, and focus on the other transfers. Ahmad is the priority sell, not Rodgers. But Wanyeri will be a nice replacement potentially in the coming weeks. I would focus on Ahmad to Kluivert, in my opinion, and then Emery to Arteta or Irreola. Double up on Bournemouth mids. I'm not against it. I'm really not. I would not be surprised if I sold Rodgers to Kluivert very soon, but there are other options like Wanyeri, for example. Should I get Gibbs White in Gameweek 29? He's been very consistent recently, so that's a good transfer. I've got Salah, Fernandes, Trent, Konate, Mezraoui to play still. Yeah, good players left. I think Mezraoui is the only one who will let you down because I just don't see United keeping a clean sheet tomorrow. But Fernandes can get something. Yeah, Karam, you've been repeating this question quite a lot, mate. Hopefully you did get my answer a few minutes ago. Kumar says Gakpo to Marmoush or Ahmad to Wanyeri. Well, it has to be Ahmad to Wanyeri because Ahmad will be out for the rest of the season, according to reports. I do like Gakpo to Marmoush, though, before Gameweek 29. Is Gakpo a hold with 2 home games against Newcastle and Southampton upcoming? Yeah, if you didn't sell him now, he is definitely not a bad option to keep for the time being. And with options like Chris Wood and Cunha, the best time to buy them specifically is probably Gameweek 29, actually. Haaland hobbled off as if he is out. If he is out, Marmoush could be even better. Yeah, but Haaland does provide that focal point up front, and Marmoush kind of thrives as a second striker. You might be right, and he gets more of the big chances, but I think Haaland will be fine, and I'm kind of hoping he is, and he can do something against Liverpool. Philly says Murphy to Dango, even though Murphy has good fixtures from 29 plus. I'd do it. Murphy blanks in 29. You can always bring him back or another Newcastle asset in preparation for double Gameweek 32. But Danny says 13.5k overall, had Verbruggen, only fair after the OG the previous week. Yeah, from -1 points and an own goal to 11 points. That's FPL for you. Marmoush in, bro. There's no rush, though. He is facing Liverpool next, the best team in the league. Orange says, D. Dylan, thoughts on Raya to Flecken, Sarr to Wanyeri, and 4.4 million mid to Marmoush. Great transfers, to be fair. The only one I don't like is Raya to Flecken. I understand that it funds the other moves, but I mean, yeah, Flecken got a bonus point today. Well done to him, but Brentford aren't really reliable defensively. So that's the only transfer I don't like. I'd consider another goalkeeper, even Kepa, who I'm not a big fan of, but he's better than Flecken. Karam says, already have Kirkes. Anyone else to change? Concert to? I did say Howson. That was my answer. I wouldn't even mind doubling up on Bournemouth defensively. So in your case, who are playing Gameweek 29, 8 Nuri, I think is a pretty decent pick. Goldhead says the hit between Kirkes and Wood didn't work out. Opted for the Bournemouth man. Fair play. Well, I say fair play. It didn't work out, but yeah. I don't really blame you for doing that. The thing is, with a lot of people, I did say I didn't expect a Bournemouth clean sheet. I did say 3-1 in my final prediction for the game. But yeah, Chris Wood is just... You can't bench this geezer. I'll probably start him against Newcastle, Arsenal and Man City. Rashford could be nailed on starter, not going to lie. He could start most games, but I don't think he'll start all of them. He has been very effective off the bench though in the last couple of matches, and it was his free kick which resulted in Watkins' equaliser. Pratik says, hi Dylan, is it worth doubling up on Bournemouth midfielders? Yes, is the simple answer. You have other options though. to diversify your midfield and attack, but it is worth it. Ahmad's surprise injury now means Dango in, I think, unless there are better options. Nwaneri is not a better option, but someone else to consider. My favourite Bournemouth mid is Kluivert, but you might have him already. Yeah, Rodgers I wouldn't buy right now. But yeah, I think probably Nwaneri is the other one to maybe take a punt on. Marco Silva has just dropped back-to-back table bonus, but is still not being considered. Yeah, I mean, not even just that. Close to 20 points on both occasions. These are massive returns. Credit to those that went there. And someone did ask me about Marco Silva yesterday, and I said no, because I thought Forest would get the win. So that's why sometimes you got to back your gut, and I'm just offering my opinion. I'll get some things right. Sometimes I'll get it massively wrong. But yeah, Marco Silva, is he one to consider for next week? Yes, but I'm just going to say this right now. In my opinion, I don't see him matching what he did in the last 2 game weeks in 26. Goldhead says, got Ahmad in die and slot to sort out next week with just 1 free transfer and 1.7 million in the bank. Well, to be fair though, you could keep slot. I don't think that's the end of the world, and Liverpool would be favourites going into that City game. In die, you could just bench and focus on replacing Amad Diallo, and you can start this replacement like Dango or Nwaneri and just have a 3-5-2 or a 4-5-1 formation maybe. So there are ways around it. Maybe just take a -4 hit, which isn't the end of the world. Yeah, Marmoush is scheduled to go up in price tonight. You are correct. That was covered earlier on screen, according to fpl.team. Callum says McKenna for AM if table bonus is there. I'm a Saints fan, and we are so awful, I wouldn't be going near Juric. That's fair enough. It's more of a case of Brighton being so unreliable. They turn up against the best teams or the biggest clubs in the country, like Chelsea, United, and Arsenal, and then against, Southampton, they draw at home, or against Ipswich, they also draw on both occasions, I believe. So yeah. And actually, no, they beat Ipswich away, but they drew against them at home. Billy says, the fact I knew Fulham would beat Newcastle and Forest, but still didn't ass-man him due to no double game week. Wow. I mean, fair play if you predicted that, but yeah, double game weeks is always the most appealing and safe option. Erling Haaland in Instagram saying he's ready and fit to face Real Madrid. Not surprised by that, to be fair. Haaland's a robot, he will heal quickly. Yeah, look, it was worrying when he first went down, but once he got up, I was like, yeah, this guy's fine. Don't worry about him. Is it just me, or are Palmer and Gabriel on serious forward watch because they aren't really living up to the price? Well, Gabriel got a clean sheet today. He got one against Wolves not so long ago. So I don't think Gabriel's really a fraud in FPL. And as for Palmer, I mean, he's the highest scoring player, probably now second, since he made his debut in Game Week 7 last season. So I do think that's a bit harsh. Has Palmer been really poor recently? Yes, especially for an 11 million midfielder, but I would not be selling him when he's facing Leicester and Southampton soon, and he's been creating a lot of chances, they just haven't been converted. So I actually think the Chelsea attackers have been fraudulent, not Palmer. Best SAR replacement for around 6.5 million or less? Yeah, Bournemouth mids, so Kluivert, Semenyo, Dango, in that order. The alternative is Nwaneri. That is what I'd be looking at. How long is Nwaneri nailed, you reckon? For the next 6-7 weeks, mate, until Saka and Martinelli are back, which is mid to late March. There is no other option, and Nwaneri is by far the best Arsenal attacker, at least he was today, and everything goes through him. He's the one who can take his opposing fullback on, and he's the one who can make something happen. He can create chances and shoot with both feet as well. Gordon to Mbeumo or Dango? I was asked this today, or yesterday should I say, and I did prefer Dango and the Bournemouth mids because they had Southampton this week. Now it's a bit closer. I'd probably lean towards Mbeumo. What I do like about Dango though is that he's cheaper and he's also a massive differential. Yeah, exactly that Mo hit. And even when Martinelli comes back, they could both start together. You put Trossard up front and then you can put Sterling on the bench and yeah, you can kind of change things up a little bit more. Thank you, DJ. As usual, amazing stream, Dylan. All your advice is greatly appreciated. Thank you very much. And good luck for the rest of Double Gameweek 25. Yeah, Spurs got Doggy, Maddison and Vicaria back. That is true. Massive boost for Tottenham. And of course, United got that massive blow for Amad Diallo out for the rest of the season, according to multiple sources. Hopefully recovers soon. What I want to do is actually quickly update my prediction based on that news. And maybe this will backfire and United end up getting a win or a draw. But let's actually change my prediction very quickly. So, of course, I'm not going to change the ones that have happened already. But for tomorrow's game, the only modification I'm making to my predictions is the United Spurs game. So let me see if I can quickly adjust it and show you my updated prediction. So I'm going to go... Yeah, that's probably what I'm going to go for. And let me know, by the way, do you want me to... Actually, you probably don't. I was going to say I can just modify the graphics and just put what the scorelines actually were. But of course, I'm not going to claim them as wins. The only one I got spot on was Bournemouth 3, Southampton 1. So yeah, let's go for Tottenham 3, Man United 2. That is my current prediction. Yeah, I'll probably stick with that. So let's... Hopefully this doesn't cause any lagging as we approach the end of this live stream. Drop a like if you enjoyed it or found it insightful. We have covered a lot of questions, and even more will be covered in future deadline streams and across all my FPL videos, like the transfer tips, the best wildcard team, and my own team selection. And for UCL Fantasy, the best limitless squad is available for members and patrons. That is one of the many perks you get when you sign up. You get early access to my videos and also priority reply to comments and much more. So let's get predictions up here. Yeah, that is it, I think. I really hope I'm not making a massive mistake here. Bloody hell. But yeah, let me know if things are running smoothly too. We did get some issues in previous live streams, but I think on the whole, it's been better. Yeah, same here, Philly. I originally said 2-2, but based on the news we're getting today, both ways for United and Spurs, I'm going 3-2 Tottenham Hotspur. Best Emery replacement, Mikel Arteta or Irrespective would be my favourites. Now, it's not always about, you know, let's say the most reliable teams, because you saw in the last couple of weeks, David Moyes with the table bonus against Liverpool, with Ursula against Chelsea, you can get some massive returns and shocks, which goes in your favour. But let me just show you now, just to kind of amend that change in the prediction. So, yeah, Tottenham 3, United 2. I'm also going Liverpool 3, Wolves 0. And for the final game of 25, the doublers of Aston Villa and Liverpool, I'm going for a 2-1 away win for the Reds. And that would be massive, I think, if they were able to do that. Arteta, Van Nistelrooy, Ursula, Iraola, Howe, Glasner, top 6 projected managers in 26. Yeah, I did show a predicted points segment for managers earlier today. It was a little bit different to that. But it did have some of those names in there, I'm fairly sure. We can go to it one more time, actually. Let's go to... Yeah, here we go. Postecoglou is top with 26.7 predicted points. Maresca second. Then we've got Slot, Arteta, and Pereira. Vitor Pereira there in the top 5. That's according to Fantasy Football Hub. Let me know, Twister Parker, where you got yours from. Patrick says for Gameweek 29, Gordon to Dango and Isak for Haaland, or Gordon to Kluivert and Isak to Marmoush. I still like Isak long term. As long as you can bring him back, that's fine. My favourite is Gordon to Kluivert and Isak to Marmoush, but let's not forget Haaland, right? It could be him scoring a hat-trick against Brighton in 29 and then Leicester in 30. So, yeah, it's just I prefer Kluivert over Dango, and Marmoush is a very appealing differential, so that's why I'm recommending that at the moment. Best time to sell Vissa, and who will be the best replacement? I'm not sure if I'd be selling him right now. I think he's more of a hold, if anything. But if you want me to give you like a definitive timeline of when to sell him, I would be looking at probably Gameweek 20, Gameweek 30. Yeah, facing Newcastle away, Chelsea at home, Arsenal away, Brighton at home, Forest away, United at home, which isn't too bad, but the other games are very, very poor. Yeah, I'd say Gameweek 30. I'd definitely keep him for the next few. He has been poor, but I would expect him to bounce back fairly soon. Hurstler got 21 points as assistant manager this week, exactly that. 6 points for the win, and then the table bonus, so 10 additional points, so that's 16. Obviously 3 goals, so that's 3 points, and then 2 points for the clean sheet, 21 overall. Billy says, how does the bonus point system work? Because it looks like it rewards taking chances even if you don't do much in a game like Wood, while Raul is very involved, but few bonus points. There are many different things that come into it. I don't know all the ins and outs, that's the honest truth, but you are correct in what you've said there. So if you miss a big chance, you'll be heavily punished in the bonus point system. And for those that are clinical like Chris Wood, it really boosts them in terms of the bonus points. So that is a very major factor. But you've also got tackles, passes, saves in the case of a goalkeeper, penalty saves. All of that contributes overall. But yeah, big chances missed. Definitely pushes you down. The same goes for if you're booked. That pretty much, in most cases, effectively rules you out of the bonus points or drops you from 3 to 2 or maybe even to 1. What is your plan for Ndai? Maybe Cunha? Yeah, I'm looking at Cunha, Marmoush, and a few other strikers to replace him, but my priority is potentially selling Slot or maybe making another change in my midfield, maybe Rodgers. But to be fair, I think in my case, it's probably best to sell Ndai instead of Rodgers for now. I can always do Rodgers to Dango or Kluivert/Wanyeri another time. But yeah, good question. I think Cunha is the best replacement for me at the moment. Marmoush is definitely on radar though. Marmoush or Cunha? My current preference is Cunha. After today though, it's very, very close. If Dorgu is played on the right wing for United now that Ahmed is out, he might be an interesting punt. You are correct. You are. It's just, it is out of position, and United could still do a few different things there, like Zirks. Well, could they do that? They could play one of these strikers as a winger, and then put Garnacho, who can play both sides, of course. But yeah, it's a massive blow for United, and if Dorgu plays as a right winger, definitely one to look at. I just don't see many clean sheets though, and will Dorgu get many attacking contributions? Maybe. Look at Marino today, but it's unlikely. Billy says Kanate to Milenkovic or Aït-Nouri from 29. Probably Milenkovic still. Forest have brilliant fixtures to round off the season. Twisted Parky says Palmer is a great option. He is class, but he isn't at City and is surrounded by players at a level below. The heights he has hit for 18 months is amazing. Carries Chelsea. Yeah, completely agree. I think you've summed it up pretty perfectly there. Now, I have said it for a lot of months now, particularly in pre-season. Palmer did score 10 penalties last season. Now, look, he's a very good penalty taker. He didn't miss one, but that was a massive boost to his scores as well. And in this campaign, he has stat padded in a few matches. And of course, welcome, thank you very much. Let's get the points. But at the same time, as you say, there's a lack of quality around him. And that's why he's created over 30 chances in this calendar year. And there is no assists. Thank you, Pratik, as well. Palmer having a blip is understandable. Bet against him against your peril, or at your peril. Absolutely spot on. I agree with you. A lot of people in this chat have said they want to sell Palmer. I'm just going to say it now. I think it's a mistake. I would not be doing it. But then again, at the same time, you can also go against the template by doing such a move. I just think it's a massive risk. Before Ahmad news, I went Spurs 2-1. Maybe you go for 3-1 now. Or 2-0. Man U don't have the firepower to score 2 goals. Yeah, maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe 2-1 is a better score, to be fair. I think Saka will return play after the international break. No rush to get him back. Wanyeri is cheap buy for more money in the future. It's just Arsenal in such a desperate position that players like Saka and Martinelli might be rushed back, and I hope that isn't the case. We need to think about the long term as well. Hi Dylan, I got my list from FPL Review. Yeah, I've heard about them, so I do appreciate it. I wasn't undermining what you said. I just wanted to see where you got the numbers from. Hi Dylan, would you do the Ahmad to Kluivert tonight or just wait 1.4 million to spend? I'd wait. Ultimately, I would make the transfer. It's just a bit risky to make early moves. I mean, I don't see it going wrong, but you just never know in football. Of course, Ahmad today got the injury for the rest of the season. It was Kai Havertz the other day. I'd always be a bit careful if you can afford it. Now thinking of getting Wanyeri for Diaz next week as a more differential punt than getting Mbeumo in. Now the fixture run looks great, but value with Wanyeri is tempting. Yeah, and his performance today was really impressive. I know Leicester are poor, but like I said, hitting the post twice, creating chances, getting the assist, completing 6 dribbles. It was a great performance for a 17-year-old. Thank you, BMVC1984. Congratulations on your channel and your dedication. You'll have a bright future in whatever you choose to do. That's very kind words from you, and the same goes to you as well. Thank you very much, and all the best of luck for Double Gameweek 25. United have to start Casemiro tomorrow. Yeah, a great defensive midfielder back in the day, but not anymore. Stream has been smooth, mate. Thank you, Richard. I'm glad to hear it. It's just I was doing something a bit risky. I was exporting a video whilst talking. Okay, I'm actually going to change my prediction one more time because I'm indecisive. I'm an indecisive idiot. So, yeah. Do I see United scoring twice? No. But then again, I didn't see Arsenal scoring twice with the lineup today, and they still were able to do it. Never say never. Always believe, even though I don't always believe. But let's get this final prediction, my shameless change of the Tottenham United game again. I'll probably jinx it now, but I'm quite surprised my voice hasn't cracked. I've barely drank any water, and like I said, I shouted like an absolute beast earlier with those Marino goals. So thank you, Marino. Very, very, well, just thank you. Because it would have been a very different weekend if you didn't score. I'll tell you that now. So, one more time. Let's go to predictions. So yeah, as you can see, I got one correct score. I did change the Arsenal one, unfortunately, from 2-0 to 1-0. So I should have stuck with my original one, but my late change to the Bournemouth one during the deadline stream, or at least going into that deadline stream, you know what I mean. It was different to the transfer tips prediction there. I did go from 4-1 Bournemouth to 3-1, so I got that spot on. And wait, what? It still says 2-2. Am I stupid? I think I'm stupid. I just put 2-2 again. You absolute pillock. I didn't mean to do that. All right, I'm going to have to go back to it again. Wait, oh, yeah. Oh, right. I think it just hasn't loaded up for some reason. Oh, okay. I didn't pause the video. Yeah, okay, I get what I did there. All right, there we go. We live and learn. There we go. It's 2-1. All right, let's keep out of that. Bloody hell, Dylan. You absolute amateur. All right, a few more questions answered, and then we will be wrapping up. I'll have a late dinner. I like having dinner late. That is Argentinian timing, by the way, just for those who aren't aware. Quinn Anders says, should I get Gibbs, White, Semenyo, or Dango in the next few weeks? All solid choices. They all feature in Blank Gameweek 29. My favourite is Semenyo. The thing is with Dango, he is playing out of position in the striker role until Evanilson is, well, back in the fold. But yeah, Semenyo is probably what I'd go for. My favourite is Kluivert. You might have him already. Semenyo is my pick. If I do Ahmad to Dango or Schade, who would you bench from Robinson, Trent and Rodgers? I'd potentially bench Trent here, which is a very big risk, by the way. I feel like Dango will be a rotation player when Evanilson is back. Yeah, that is the risk, of course, but we're probably looking at March to April for that. So for the time being, a few weeks at least, I think that is fairly decent. Hey, Dylan, thanks for the stream. Thank you, Sydney. Likewise, I'm glad that you've joined once again. And thank you to Stepaki, as he says, more likes people. So those are my final predictions. I'm going to stick with Tottenham 2, Man United 1. Originally, I said 2-2, but that Ahmad news is a massive blow. Let's see if Ruben Amorim can do something miraculous, you could say. But yeah, Tottenham have a good record against United this season, of course, scoring multiple goals against them. So I can see why some of you are quite optimistic. Go for 3-1 Spurs. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, root for table bonus is one I've highlighted, but I'm not sure if I'll go there myself. I'd rather avoid the Brentford-Leicester game. Personally, if I were to change slot, I think Arteta or Iraola would be next in line, but I don't want to jinx Arteta. Yeah, the most important thing is Arsenal, unfortunately. Keep Emery for Chelsea. Not a bad shout. The only downside is that you don't get table bonus now because Chelsea have been that poor. They've just been dropping in the Premier League table. But yeah, I think that's a good one. I'd rather go for Arteta or Iraola, though. I mean, look, that's looking really far ahead. Right now, I prefer Cunha over Marmoush, but that could certainly change by the time we get to 29. And I might have both of them in the end, but maybe I end up edging towards Marmoush. Richard says, free hit 29 means me keeping Salah, Trent, Isak, Hall, Munoz, Rodgers without selling, and buying back after and losing team value. Need Newcastle and Palace back for double gimmick 32, and Liverpool back for guaranteed fixtures in 34. Yeah, and it also allows you to buy Mateta if you haven't already. So that's why free at 29 is still very strong. I actually prefer it over 34. And there's also the possibility of free hitting in a double game week, especially for those who have used a lot of chips. But yeah, that's a very good argument you make there. Keeping Emery versus Chelsea is 50-50 for me. I'd make a final decision after the Liverpool game. And if Villa get a win there, you'd obviously be much more optimistic heading into 26. Yeah, Dolgo play like a winger Felice, fair enough. It's just, from my perspective, I don't see him getting many contributions there, but it's definitely worth pointing out. I think those that have highlighted it, like in saying Gamer 7 and Spacine, make a very good and compelling argument. Do you prefer Semenyo, Dango, or Gibbs White? As covered before, Semenyo. I saw enough to start Rashford and Asensio if I was Emery. Oh yeah, Asensio against Spurs in the FA Cup was brilliant, and he also was close to scoring against Ipswich Town today. Rashford had some very good moments in the game, going past the opposing fullback and also hitting the crossbar from the free kick, which led to Watkins' goal. Good night, Lager. Thank you very much. I played Draft Prem, says Jaren. Traded Akanji and Gakpo for Kirkus and Kluivert last week. Nicely done. And yeah, a bit disappointed with Kirkes, but overall, still good transfers. Sydney says, who should I sell first for a Bournemouth mid? Rodgers or Enzo? I'd rather sell Enzo. I think Rodgers is a much better option. The only kind of against argument to it is that Enzo plays in 29 against Arsenal away, whilst Rodgers doesn't feature. But long term, I think Rodgers is a much better FPL option. And in that matchup between Villa and Chelsea, I'd back Morgan Rodgers. I'm not playing my free hit in 29. I'm tempted to keep Enzo for Southampton and Leicester, but wouldn't want to play him against Arsenal. Yeah, that is true. There are some good games for Chelsea before 29, but from my perspective, it has to be Rodgers. I prefer him all day long over Enzo. Would you pick up Marino or Calafiori? Marino. I mean, he scored a brace today off the bench, and Calafiori, by the way, he's been a good signing for Arsenal. I'm just a bit guided by his injury record. Hopefully he can stay fit, but yeah, Marino would be the one from those two. And my favourite Arsenal player, or attacker, would be Wanyeri. The best FPL option is Gabriel still. Philly says, Glasner for AM Gimmick 32, or wait for when teams are on the beach and go for managers like Pereira or West Ham manager like 36. That is a good point about waiting for the end of the season when you do get like these teams that have nothing to play for, but it can also backfire, you know, the other way. I don't think there's like a specific time to really play these chips, but, or like, I think there are windows, right? I've always said the windows to play the assistant manager. At the moment, I am looking at 32 because you'd also have a double in Gimmick 33. You know, I'd be shocked if we didn't get doubles in 33. I mean, we have to get some there. So, yeah, I'd say 32 looks very enticing. Ahmad to Wanyeri today, before price rise, what do you think? You're not going to be priced out. I get why you want to do it early, but my advice is to wait because what if Wanyeri gets injured? God forbid, please no. We've had enough pain. But, yeah, look at what happened to Havertz a few days ago. Amad Diallo today with the news. I'd always try to wait if you can. Dylan, I currently don't own Wood or Mateta, and it makes me nervous. I don't get nervous. I currently have Gakpo, Watkins, Isak. Watkins is a hold for Chelsea at least. Who do I flip him to? Marmoush, Cunha, Wood, Mateta. My favourite overall is Chris Wood, but you'd be buying him for Man City and Arsenal. Not the worst fixtures, especially City at home, but yeah, it's still going to be Chris Wood for me. Spurs free, United free. Son, Richarlison and Tell, while Bruno Garnacho and an own goal from Spurs. Well, we'll go back to that in a week's time, but for United to score free without Amad Diallo and their blunt attack would be impressive. Twisted Parky says, maybe I'm a bit Argentinian. Typically I have my dinner between 10 and 10:30 p.m. Wow, you put me to shame. I usually have it now at 9:30 p.m. actually. I blame football, yeah. I mean, in Spain as well, they also eat very late. They can have dinner at 10 p.m. That's why you typically see some games start at 10 p.m. on Saturday night. What week are you playing your wildcard? It's not set in stone, Gabriel, but I am looking at using it after Gimmick 29. So between Gimmick 30 and 34, I can't tell you specifically which Gimmick because it also depends on my other chips. For example, if I bench boost in 33, I might actually wildcard in 31. Should I have just kept Moyes, Sai? Yeah, if you went for Emery, yeah, it looks like that's going to be the case unless Emery gets a draw or a win against Liverpool. Then you'll feel differently, but it's a massive if. I'm not free hitting in 29, just benching Isak, Salah and Trent. Different ways of playing the game this season, which I do like. The template is still relatively strong. Hopefully we see a change to that, but the chip strategies are diverse, which is great to see. I hope Arsenal smash Chelsea in 29, and you know why? Yeah, and you got your wish, right? You said you hope you beat Chelsea again, and not only that, you stuffed them. Shine Star Gaming says, when you play triple captain, if AM is active now, well, you can't play both of them at the same time. And remember, the assistant manager is active for 3 game weeks. Check out my recent videos and streams, particularly the assistant manager live stream a few weeks ago and the chip strategy guide, because everything is covered in detail. But yeah, if you are using the assistant manager now, I'd be triple captaining Isak, for example, in Gimmick 32. That is a great opportunity. If not, for another double in 33 or 36 for another player like Erling Haaland or somebody else potentially. But it's very unlikely that Liverpool will double again because they are out of the FA Cup and they aren't blanking in Gimmick 34. Do you think Liverpool rest Salah, Trent, Virgil, etc. in the final Gimmick if they already won the league? Well, it also depends on the context, right? If they're in, let's say, the Champions League final or in the latter stages of that competition, then maybe. But I still think they'll go quite strong, but they might just kind of ease into it. They can still get the win in 38, but hopefully that's not the case and they don't win the league. Quinn says, do I take a -4 point hit replacing Slot or Viraola for Game Week 26? Not for me, no. Not for a hit. I get why you're thinking about it because you're looking at Man City's maybe resurgence in that 4-0 win, but a few weeks ago they beat Ipswich Town 6-0, they beat Chelsea 3-1, then got stuffed by Arsenal. So I still don't think they're quite there yet. They considered some chances today, although you have to say they deserve to win, and Newcastle didn't really lay a glove on them, but they still had a few moments. Would you rather buy Mbeumo as a DS replacement or take a punt on Trossard? I'd rather go for Mbeumo. The one Arsenal attacker I'm really bullish on is Wanyeri, actually. But look, to be fair to Trossard, he didn't play well today. Brilliant cross for Marino for the second goal. And in the last couple of weeks, he's been quite consistent. He scored against Tottenham Hotspur and got a few goals here and there, so not a terrible pick. Keep Joao Pedro this week, despite not starting, but it's Southampton away. Yeah, the thing is, though, you'd be tempted to start him there. But the fact he was benched yesterday is a big concern. Between FPL and UCL Fantasy, which is more fun to play? UCL Fantasy, I've always said that, and I actually got a red arrow, which I'll talk about in my upcoming videos, but UCL Fantasy for me. I swear Salah has in his contract, you can't bench me. Yeah, he rarely gets injured, which obviously is a good thing for Liverpool. And also the way he plays. He does track back a little bit, but he does have the kind of license to stay forward, which helps a lot in terms of preventing injuries. FA Cup caused us to play the triple chip early. Do you think for those that didn't get a good single score, we have learned to save and see what happens after Christmas? Oof. Yeah. But the thing is, though, there's a fine line. I mean, Haaland had so many big chances against Southampton. I'm guessing that's when you played it, right, in Game Week 7. That's a bit of bad luck as well. I had some fortune when I played on Haaland against Ipswich Town, but I just had a great feeling about it, and it went well for me. But then you look at how Salah did last week, and you're kind of thinking, well, maybe if I just kept it, it would have been even better. But I don't know. I think there's a fine line, and ultimately you want to use chips in double game weeks, but you can't use all of them in double game weeks because you've only got a certain amount of doubles and also chips to use, so it's not always possible. I take that back in case I jinx it. Says Twisted Parky. Yeah, I get that. Asking Liverpool winning the league scenarios for Dylan is brutal. Well, look, I'm realistic about it. I think Liverpool will win the league, and with Arsenal's lack of forwards, with all their injuries, I think it would be a miracle. That's the way I describe it. If Arsenal win the league, Arteta deserves a statue. It's probably not going to happen, but I don't know. I'm just happy. I'm enjoying the moment. The 2 late Marino goals, because for 80 minutes I was cussing, I was pissed off, and I was thinking the worst of Arsenal and football. Twisted Parky says, I would not keep Brighton assets. Points can come from anywhere. Yeah, Mitoma might be the best of a bad bunch. I'm going to start Veltman next week and hope they can do something for me, but I think I think Southampton score. Random question, how did you feel when Mbappe scored that second goal as an Argentinian? Bruh, I can't lie, like, I actually remember the moment, like, how do I describe it? Like, it felt like the entire game and my world fell apart. It sounds dramatic, but I just felt like we were letting the game go. And of course, something similar happened against the Netherlands. 2-0 lead, somehow go to 2-2. We should have been out of sight. I mean, the first half performance against France is one of the best you'll ever see in a World Cup final, similar to what they did against Brazil for 90 minutes in 1998. But yeah, I felt like we were going to lose it there, or we could lose it, and I felt, no, this is our World Cup, we have to win it, and thankfully we did. Easy99 says, well, everyone will bench Salah in Game Week 29. Yeah, the only time we will. You never bench Salah otherwise. Are you free hitting in 29, or can you show your early thoughts on navigating through? Well, that is covered in my chip strategy guide, so check that video out. I'm wrapping this video fairly soon, but I'm keeping my options open. At the moment, it's more likely I'll free hit in 29 compared to 34, but I'm also kind of exploring possibilities of using it in a double game week like 32 or 33, because in my case, I've got one Newcastle player in Isak, I've got no one from Palace, so maybe it works very well for me if I free hit in 32, as one particular example. So I'm keeping my options open, sorry. Yeah, free in 29 is a possibility, but I'm going to also look at ways of maybe navigating it without the free hit. So it all depends on injuries as well in the next couple of weeks and how that impacts my transfers and my Game Week 29 setup. But at the moment, I'd say Game Week 29 a free hit. I'm going to look to avoid it if I can. I'm not thinking of a better manager to replace Slot. It's just that Man City away fixture, right? Best manager for next week, Arteta or Iraola for me. But there are also going to be those table bonus or the potential, like Ruud van Nistelrooy, that could work very well, but it's high risk, high reward. Yeah, I played it versus the Saints. Very unfortunate. I mean, he missed 3 big chances, I think. Good to see you, FPL Yellow Army. Evening, Dylan. Hope you're well, mate. Likewise. And 38 points of Emery, Trent, Salah, Gakpo to play. Really good stuff. I don't think Gakpo starts tomorrow, but maybe I'll be wrong about that. And the second game against Villa away. I mean, it's a good fixture for attackers. Gakpo isn't the best in away matches, but that could work very well for you. And I think Gakpo will have some good scores in the upcoming weeks with some home games against Newcastle and Southampton. Quinn says, do I bring in Mateta or Wood in for Watkins Game Week 26 or hold Watkins? I'd hold Watkins for now. Salah is the most popular captain in FPL, but in Game Week 29, who is a temporary captain? Haaland, if you go to him, by the way. Yeah, Haaland or Marmoush would be pretty decent. Veltman is a legend, I love him. He's a bit of a shithouse. I mean, he got Rice sent off. I mean, I'd like him if he was at my club. I get that. And I think he's very important for Brighton. Very underrated, very consistent. So, yeah. Would have paid to see your match reaction. Yeah, look, my voice is literally almost gone. I'm surprised I'm able to speak normally. I was screaming for like 15 seconds straight when Marina scored the first goal, I'm telling you. Even with the second one, I was a bit calmer, but still shouted a little bit. Yeah, I kind of wish I didn't scream too much, but it's not too bad. Mustafa says, would you swap Isak, Mateta or Cunha out for Marmoush? Well, it also depends on if you're free hitting in 29, right? Because if you aren't, I think the simple answer is you keep Cunha and you sell one of Mateta or Isak. I would not be swapping any of them up for Marmoush right now. In Game Week 29, and let's say, for example, you're planning to bench one of them, my advice would be to keep Isak and sell Mateta to Marmoush. But yeah, it all depends on that. Let's say, for example, you're really set on free hitting in 29. In that case, it changes the whole complexion of this question and answer. And I'd be saying sell Cunha, and you can always bring him in for 29 on the free hit. Thank you, Pratik. Mustafa says, Rodgers out for Semenyo or their 5.1 million mid. Yeah, Dango or Ouattara. I mean, I prefer Semenyo, but for the next couple of weeks, until Evanilson is back, which could be in April, I think Dango might be even better, to be fair. And he's cheaper. That's why I love him. Sticks the boot in. Yeah, I get that. Without that sub, Arsenal were not going to win. Apart from that young lad, attack was stale. That's the problem. Sterling on the left just wasn't doing it. Trossard had a poor game, but also came in clutch towards the end. Odegaard had some good moments, but Arsenal lack rhythm and momentum in the game. It's very concerning. I see some tough times ahead, which is obviously captain obvious, right? But I was hoping for something a bit more reassuring, like a free 4-0 win, easy stuff, Sterling brace, but we didn't get it. Twister Parky says, shall I take the armband off Salah 26, going Bumo Kluivert? They're good options for sure, and Semenyo might be my vice-captain, or even possibly in Bumo, but at the moment I have to say Salah's still my captain. Maybe it's too boring. I'm playing my wildcard in 30. In blank game at 29, would you sell Mateta for Marmoush, Cunha, or Haaland by downgrading Palmer to a Bournemouth mid? Oof. Yeah, I would probably stick with Palmer. He can still get something at the Emirates. And I would do Mateta to Cunha, I think, facing Southampton. All options are very solid though, Sydney. Depending on the FA Cup draw, at least 7 Premier League teams and 1 Championship club will be in the quarter-final. At least 4 teams possibly blanking, plus more in 34. Yeah, good way of summing it up, and this will be covered more so in future videos and podcasts, but I did cover the 2 confirmed fixtures in Game Week 34, which is Chelsea versus Everton and Liverpool versus Spurs. I took a -8, got 34 points, sold Gakpo, Isak, 4.3 million mid to Wissa, Watkins, Kluivert. Not too shabby, all things considered. Can we talk about how insane Chris Wood is? Yeah, we could. He's my best pick this season. I started Game Week 1 with him, but I think some people will be tired of hearing that, especially those that don't have him. I mean, he just defies the stats, the XG merchants, the statisticians, the mathematicians, but yeah, I'm happy. He's getting me some points. Unfortunately, though, he is template, so you don't get a massive rank rise from it. Any players you wish you had for this next few game weeks? Yeah, Kluivert would be one of them. One of Housen or Kirkes. I could still bring them in, by the way, but it would be quite tough, especially if I want to sell Arne slot as well. Only Preston versus Burnley are involved. 2 Championship teams in the round of 16. One of them takes the spot. Yeah, exactly that. And Burnley, by the way, how many nil-nils and clean sheets are they keeping under Scott Parker? Currently sat at 884 overall. 3 transfers in the back, feeling pretty good. I would be too, mate. Enjoy it, and hopefully you can push on even further to a somehow even better rank. Musica Pogo says, was gonna do a Sarr to Ahmad. Will need to rip that plan up now. Who does Rogers Sarr move to for you? Yeah, Bournemouth mids is the priority. So Kluivert, Semenyo, Dango in that order. You could arguably go for Dango over Semenyo, that's fine. But Wanyeri is another punt you could maybe go for at 4.5 million. Maximum bonus points today. Yeah, I've covered Wanyeri a lot today. So be sure to watch the beginning of the podcast as well. Wanyeri is my favourite Arsenal attacker. I would rather go for him than Trossard, Sterling. Marino is another punt you could maybe go for, playing up front for the Gunners. Being the hero today, but Wanyeri is my favourite. Like, he's literally my favourite human in the world. I mean, I might start cussing Chris Wood if he scores against Arsenal in a couple of weeks, but let me not think about that right now. Let me just think about the points he's getting. Yes, he's one of my favourite humans in the FPL sphere, let's say. Mohit says, is it possible that Sterling is done as a top-level player, even though he's only 30? Can we attribute it to him playing full-time as a 16-year-old? Possibly, and I hope that doesn't happen to Wanyeri and Yamal, for example, these 17-year-olds who have been playing so much football at such a young age, especially with Yamal, of course. Yeah, I think Sterling, I hope he can do something. And you know what? I have to say I'm privileged. I went to the Arsenal game against Bolton where Sterling scored his only Arsenal goal. Maybe I should go to the Emirates more often, but yeah, he's had some moments. He came off the bench against Forest, got an assist. He played well against Girona, but missed the penalty. But you can clearly tell he's devoid of confidence. I hope he can get a goal and transform everything, but it's very unlikely. I do think it's pretty much done for him. Hopefully I'm wrong about that. Do we need a refresh? Like, you can only use captain on the same player 5 times a season. It's just become pointless, it seems. I heard this question last season when we all went for Haaland basically all the time, and I completely get it. Possibly. It would make the captaincy more interesting. I mean, look at UCL Fantasy. People go for Dembele, Harry Kane, Vinicius Jr. You've got so many options. But in FPL, Salah. Kind of boring. Burnley, 11 clean sheets in a row. It's ridiculous, isn't it? You only get to appreciate how good Chris Wood is once you own him. Exactly that. When he was scoring and he wasn't in my team, because I sold him for like 3-4 weeks, I was like, I don't like it. Wanyeri is the shining light in the Arsenal team. So is Miles Lewis-Skelly, who made a crucial block to prevent Decordova-Reid scoring Leicester's opening goal. Thoughts on triple captain Haaland or triple captain Isak? Well, for those that have the assistant manager left, I would prioritise the assistant manager around game week 32-33. And in that scenario, I would say triple captain Haaland around game week 36 maybe. But there is still a possibility of that falling under game week 33. So if that's the case, that's a close one, to be fair. But yeah, assuming that Haaland doubles in 36, I'd rather triple captain him in that game week specifically. Do you want Arsenal to buy Sterling in permanent deal? As a Chelsea fan, we likely welcome it. Respectfully, piss off. No chance, mate, no. He will be sold by Chelsea as well, and not to Arsenal. Matoma looks like a great pick moving forward. He's been really consistent, despite that blank in the 7-0 loss. You can forgive him for that. But amongst inconsistent Brighton assets, he's shown a degree of consistency with the goal contributions. I want to say he's a great pick, but he's the best of a bad bunch in regards to Brighton. That's the way I look at him. There are not forests without a wood. Yeah, it's a match made in heaven, you could say. Good way of summing it up. I don't know why I assumed Sterling would be 38 or so. He has been around for a while. When he burst onto the scene like 10 years ago, 11 years ago, in that kind of first title charge by Liverpool under Brendan Rodgers, he was like 17, 18 at the time. SAS, the famous trio, Suarez, Sturridge, whatever, Sterling, Suarez and Sturridge, whatever, yeah, you get it. Oh, that question by Twister Parky, to be honest, I back him, we might need to add that, says City. Interesting stuff. Chess Econ says, to replace Rodgers, would you play safe with Kluivert or differential with Mitoma? Feel like I have to have a differential whisper. Dango before the hat-trick, Trossard now maybe Mitoma. Yeah, it's just with Mitoma, I do think the returns will dry up. That's my opinion. I mean, Southampton away next. He did do really well in the reverse fixture when we all went for Pedro, like myself. I'd go for Kluivert personally, but I understand why you want to go for a differential. Wanyeri would be another one. Get MLS instead of Gabriel, looking for cheap defenders to get funds getting Trent. No, because Lewis Skelly is a midfielder in FPL. Yeah, exactly that, Charlie. Otherwise, Lewis Skelly would be brilliant value. Chris Wood is a great striker, just old school, no pace. At Burnley, etc., he played for teams that could not get up the pitch and support him. Yeah, sometimes styles and managers play a big part. Since Nuno's come in at Forest, Chris Wood is one of the top scorers in the Premier League. I love Chris Wood goals as well. Slow trickles finished, rather placed to perfection in the corner of the goal. Yeah, today was a bit fortunate because it was deflected off Bassi, I think it was, but I'll take it. Do you think White coming back soon will limit Timber's starts leading up to 29? That is a great question. I do think Ben White will start eventually, but not yet. Like against West Ham, I think Timber will start. White will be eased back into things because he's come off the back of a few months of injury. But heading into 29, by that stage, we could see White start and then Timber shift to the left. But with how well Skelly and Calafiori are playing there, I don't think that's necessary. So maybe White and Timber rotate with the other options because let's not forget both of them are centre-backs by trade. Is Double Gameweek 33 as well as 32? Yes. And Newcastle, for example, could double in both weeks, which would make Eddie Howe, assistant manager, very appealing to say the least. Sterling has played for Liverpool, Man City, Chelsea and Arsenal. And he's a United fan, or at least he was as a kid. So kind of ironic. The only top or Big Six team, or, well, there is Spurs, but yeah, it's kind of ironic United is the only one he hasn't played for. Maybe next season. United, do you want him? Mohit says, I just looked at the touch map for Nico Gonzalez against Newcastle and it shows him being all around the pitch. Impressive. Any chance Gavardio comes back into our teams now? If City can be solid defensively for a prolonged period of time, then yes. But until that happens and until their fixtures get better, which is fairly soon, but still a while to go, I would say no. Probably around Game Week 29 is a nice time to invest in City, including Gavardio. But yeah, Gonzalez, I mean, very early days, of course, but that could be a very good signing. Yeah, Matoma, look, facing Southampton away next, I get it. If you want a differential, I think he's the best Brighton asset, but I do prefer Kluivert. I have to say that. I hate not having Wood. Pause. Yeah, I get that. Marino's a better finisher than Havertz. Look, Havertz, he has done a good job for Arsenal in 2024. Ultimately, Arsenal need a top quality striker, and I think Havertz would be a great squad option, starting a few games here and there. He could start 2-3 in a row, then come off the bench in other games. But yeah, with Marino, he has missed some big chances this season, but thank you for the goals today. I have to say that. Arsenal fans were great today. Arsenal away fans are up there with the best in the league. I mean, I'm not going to say the best because everyone will have their own opinion and we're all biased to a certain degree, but Arsenal away fans are always very loud. Even against Newcastle away, you know, up in the heavens, you could say, in that stadium, you could still hear them, despite obviously the circumstances. But yeah, the home fans, I'd like a bit more atmosphere at the Emirates. I do think English fans in general with the home stadiums, I'd like to see a bit more, but that's just an opinion of mine. Easy says, we likely will see Chris Wood in the World Cup next year, as there's one spot in the Oceania region. Oh yeah, hopefully we do. As long as he doesn't play Argentina and scores, I'll be happy with that. Do you think it's necessary to transfer out Slot before City for probably a hit? No. Especially for a hit, I'd say no, it's not necessary. Do we know the details for Double Gameweek 33? Not yet fully. I'll talk more about this in future videos and podcasts, but of course with 32, that was covered yesterday and also in my team selection video. Kusanov could be great value pick at 5 million. I'd rather go for Gavardio, but you are right, that could be even better value in terms of the clean sheets and maybe bonus points. And he played fairly well today, up against Isak. I love having Chris Wood, says Alex ND. Of course, I had to add the Chris in there. It will likely be moving forward trio partnership of Trossard, Marino, Wanyeri up front for Arsenal. Possibly, which is still not good enough, but it's better than nothing, I guess. If Gakpo's injury is more serious than we think, would you consider keeping Diaz till Game Week 29 instead of selling to Mbuma right now? Yeah, I would consider keeping him, but Diaz is so inconsistent. He can go multiple months without a return, and in the best team in the league, I think Diaz has been quite underwhelming, actually. Yeah, I know the pun was intended. That's why I had to add the Chris in there. Disaster for me, says Eri. Hopefully you can turn things around. I kept Moyes this game week, 8 points. Yeah, better than Emery so far. That could change, but yeah, David Moyes is a winner, as he said back in his West Ham days. Do you feel that triple Newcastle is dangerous considering they have lost 3 in a row in the Premier League, considering they have conceded 4 goals twice until Joelinton returns? Own only Isak, no one else. Yeah, it is dangerous, and they blank in 29. I think it's probably better to double or triple up around Game Week 32, of course. It goes without saying. Right now, they are sellable. FPL Yellow Army says, do you think you'd avoid Haaland in 29 by buying Marmoush, and then just take a hit to sell Palmer in 30 to get Haaland straight in for Marmoush for the Leicester game? That is one good way of playing it. I'm just not a big fan of selling Palmer. But by that stage, they've got more difficult fixtures. You had the Leicester and Southampton games go past Chelsea there. But selling Marmoush to Haaland, I mean, I wouldn't say sideways, but it is risky. And you saw today, for example, Marmoush scored a hat-trick, Haaland blanked. What if that happens in 30? Probably unlikely. I think both of them could haul. It's an interesting idea, but I wouldn't recommend selling Marmoush to Haaland necessarily in 30. Did -4 for Rodgers, have Rashford in challenge. Nice. Do I have Rashford in challenge? No, I don't. I probably should have gone for him there. It's the same time at the Amex home support never as good away. I think fans expect the team to win at home and get restless and quiet. Yeah, and also the away fans are they're congregated, they're all together. In a home stadium, for example, you've got a lot of tourists or, maybe families and kids and stuff like that. So it's going to be quieter. I get it, but I'd rather have a bit more atmosphere, to be fair. Thank you to those that have tuned in today in this rather extensive live stream, over 2 hours and 20 minutes. And of course, yesterday, it was a mammoth 3 hours. If you haven't already, smash the like button and subscribe for new, hitting that notification bell in the process so you never miss a single FPL or UC Fantasy upload. And not just that, there are going to be more live streams on the horizon. On Tuesday, the Matchday 10 deadline stream for the Champions League will be on your way. The best limitless team is available for channel members and patrons. The link is in the description below for my patreon.com/DylanRCM, yada, yada, yada. And you can also join by clicking the join button on YouTube. My Twitter and Instagram is DylanRCM, Blue Skies FPL Dylan. Still very easy to find me across all these social media platforms, but we have covered a lot of different questions and comments today, and I do appreciate all of your more feedback. We will be there on Wednesday. I have faith in Emery. His record versus good teams is elite. Yeah, with Emery and Aston Villa, sometimes a bit like Brighton, they're better against the best teams in the country rather than these kind of weaker teams, so to speak. Emery owners in the mud, yeah, look, it's still early on. I hope Emery does a masterclass and gets massive points and my Arne slot flops. I'll take that, as long as it means Liverpool drop points. But then again, we don't always get what we want, do we? Finkon says, Rodgers and Hall, sell, hold. Look, Rodgers to a Bournemouth mid is definitely a great transfer, especially with blank gimmick 29 in mind, but I actually think Rodgers could haul against Chelsea. I'm not going to lie. I know he's been terrible in FPL recently, but I do sense Rodgers doing well against Liverpool or Chelsea, maybe even both. I hope he does it in both, but yeah, I think against Chelsea's more of a hold. Lewis Hall, I think, is sellable, and you can bring him back around Gameweek 32. I'm very grateful for his points, but do you think about after the Liverpool fixture, Mateta to Marmoush is viable? Yeah, it definitely is, especially if you aren't free hitting in 29. But with Mateta, his form is incredible. You don't want to sell him just yet. Thoughts on Tavernier as a good differential? He played well when he came on and likely to start more games now. He's fully fit. I still think, yeah, he could start more games, true, but I'd rather go for Dango, Clover and Semenyo still. I think Tavernier will still be an option off the bench. He started more games last year and also the season before that, and he was actually an interesting FPL option from time to time. One to look at for sure, and he might be a massive differential, but I prefer the other Bournemouth mids. Wanyeri is a good punt, but Arsenal is struggling up top. Points made me limited. Bournemouth are better assets, I think. Off to watch Arsenal ladies tomorrow. Might scout for a forward for men's team. Mate, we have to take all the help we can get. Yeah, I do like Wanyeri as a good punt, yeah. As you say, the Bournemouth mids are better. That is true. Should I get Marmoush before price drop? I would not be making early transfers if you can. We've had so many injuries recently, like Amad Diallo for the rest of the season, Kai Havertz. If you're going to be priced out, fair enough, but he is facing Liverpool next, right? Let's not forget that. And you might be selling a quality forward in the process, so I'd be careful. I think buying Marmoush is an absolute fine idea, especially for blank gimmick 29, but you don't need to rush it. Easy says, are different styles of football, especially in the Premier League, difficult for players first time in the Premier League, and when the players struggle in the Premier League, their performances in another league, when they get loaned or sold? Well, yeah, but it also goes for different competitions and leagues as well, right? Not just the Prem, but it can be difficult to adapt. And Marmoush obviously didn't get any goals or assists in the first few games, but he had some signs, I think, of some good performances. And that hat-trick was surprising, to be fair, but still very impressive. Can't understand my son manager's bench Wood. Best strike in the game. Well, to be fair, I saw some of the benching dilemmas. They were very difficult, but in a lot of cases, I did recommend starting Chris Wood, if not all. Has Worcester been cursed or something? He can be erratic with his finishing. He's a good forward, but yeah, he's been a bit underwhelming recently. And of course, the goal disallowed today, a bit unfortunate, but Yana was offside. Thank you, Richard. Thanks for all your help, Dylan. Great stream. As always, mate, good luck with the rest of the game week. Likewise, hopefully you do very well and get a green arrow. I'll be benching Rodgers versus Chelsea. As things stand, I'm looking to start him. Madge says, is Gakpo to Marmoush before price drop reasonable? I still use that to fund an Mbeumo move. It's reasonable, but I honestly wouldn't pull the trigger just yet. That's just my take on it. And also, Gakpo faces Southampton and Newcastle at home fairly soon. He could do very well. I mean, look at his home record at Anfield this season. Thank you, Ahmed. Dylan, your commitment and FPL help is amazing. I need to use Discord more. Yeah, I'll be active on that after the stream is done and also after my dinner. Otherwise, you know, I need that dinner. We all do. Thanks for a great one yet again. Likewise, Ahmed, thank you very much. And thank you, FPL Yellow Army. Best FPL stream I've watched all weekend. Well done, Dylan. That's very, well, kind words. Very great praise. Thank you very much, FPL Yellow Army. Check out his channel as well. And thank you to everyone who's been tuning in. Massively appreciated. Twisted Parky says, I would never bench Wood. Just I went with Watkins for the double, which has not been much of a gain. Yeah. I mean, I saw Chris Wood just before he faced... So I benched him against City and he blanked. He missed a big chance. Then I sold him against United. Rookie Dylan. That was stupid. But I bought him back fairly soon afterwards. But yeah, we all make mistakes, right? Sydney says, is it just me or does Game Week 30 look like the only reasonable time to wildcard if you're not free hitting in 29? Well, yes, because if you're not free hitting in 29, you want to dead end your team and focus on blank 29 and then wildcard out of it and then optimize your team for the rest of the season for double game weeks in 32, 33 and potentially 36. So yeah, I think for those not free hitting in 29, Game Week 30 is a great time to wildcard, maybe even the only time that looks ideal. What are you having for dinner? I actually don't know. It's either going to be Indian food, Chinese, or homemade pizza. I'm going to have a look. But yeah, I can't wait to eat. I can't lie. Tandoori masala, salmon, rice, mint, mushy peas, egg, and salsa. Oh, and avocado. Mate, I'm getting hungry now. Fuck, I need to stop this. You get to bring in players who are both doubling in 32 and 33 and have plum fixtures before that, such as Newcastle and Palace. Plus, by then, we'll know who doubles for the rest of the season. Yeah, you make a great point, and like I said, I agree with you. I think for those free hitting, or should I say not free hitting in 29, wildcarding in 30 is the best time to do it. But on the other hand, I think the free in 29 does change things a little bit and maybe opens up the window for the wildcard in a lot of cases. Thank you everyone for watching. It's been a massive pleasure talking to you for the last few hours. I'll see you very soon for more FPL and Yusuf Fantasy content. Keep your eyes peeled for the Best Limitless team out tomorrow and much more. And good luck for the rest of Double Gameweek 25 as well as the rest of the season. May your arrows be green. Take care.